Welcome to r/entitled parents, where OP's mom is demanding she pay rent. My parents are demanding that I, 19 female, pay them rent. I, 19 female, am at an impasse with my parents, who are 46 and 44, regarding rent for the house that we all live in. Background: when I was in early high school, my grandmother unfortunately passed away. In her will, she left half of her house to her mother and half to me. She had no other relatives. My whole family moved to grandmother's house, and we've been living there ever since. When I finished high school, I enrolled into a local college, and honestly, it didn't make much sense to move onto campus as living at home allowed me to save money. So I continued to live at home. Grandma's money also helped cover my tuition, and I have a YouTube channel that generates some income, so I can cover my living expenses and have some left over. However, my parents are not happy that I continue to live at home and yet refuse to obey their home rules, like curfew or how much time I spend playing video games, even though video games actually generate my income, or that I don't come upstairs to join them for meals, and instead I cook my own in the kitchenette downstairs. So they tried to pull the "our home, our rules, either you pay rent or get out" spiel, and I pointed out that it's as much my house as it is my mother's, and whatever rent they charge me, I can charge my father as he isn't on the house deed. I don't mind contributing towards groceries, utilities, and house taxes, but they can't charge me rent for living in a house that I illegally own, nor can they kick me out. I'm not a kid anymore, and I'm not a tenant. They're upset that I dared to throw "my house, my rules" into their faces. Am I the jerk? Update: all these replies made me realize that my parents might think I'm paying for the occurring expenses with inheritance, not with my streaming income, and they might not understand how much I'm actually making playing video games. I'll show them the printouts for the last 3 months and see what happens. Wish me luck. Update 2. I know how much the house is appraised for. I pay my portion of the house tax, homeowner's insurance, utilities, maintenance, etc. And I'm saving up for the big house repair that's coming up in 3 years. Update 3. I talked to my parents in detail and explained to them what exactly I'm doing when I'm playing video games in funny costumes, with printouts of time that it takes to set up the stage, editing time, script writing, etc. You guys were right. They legit had no idea it can be a viable source of income with prep and thought that I was just squandering the inheritance on video games. We set my working hours and figured out family time schedule, and they dropped the whole rent issue. Thanks, y'all. Well, you know what? If your parents get to the point of really upsetting you, you can force a sale of the house. It might be relationship ending, but if they anger you enough that you don't even care, you can consult a lawyer and a real estate agent and rock your parents' world. That being said, while you may technically own half that house, utilities, taxes, insurance, and upkeep are ongoing expenses, and they can be substantial and they're totally necessary. If you're paying your part of those bills, you can tell your parents and their rules to buzz off. And let your parents know you have options. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. They can't charge you for rent in a place that you own. If anything, only your dad can be charged for rent in this situation, unless there's others in the house too. I'd push this situation and make them buy you out. This doesn't bode well for you. My girlfriend pranks her male friend, and now I'm wondering if the pranks are actually flirting. My girlfriend of 2 years has had this male friend for a while. His name is Declan, and I'm not his biggest fan, but I didn't want to impede on their friendship. So she told me last week that Declan pranked her by calling her up and pretending to be Jack Nicholson with one of those soundboards, so she wants to get him back. So, as a joke, the next time we were over at his place, she used his landline to call a love hotline that charged by the minute and then just left the phone there. Declan gets charged like $200 for it. So Declan strikes back at her again. At this point, they're still just being goofy, and I don't really mind. He comes over to her place for a party she was throwing, then hides this creepy doll in her closet. She finds it, freaks out, but then starts laughing. Now she wants to prank Declan even more. So she knows he's scared of clowns, and she literally makes this giant papier-mâché clown statue that's hollow on the inside. She wants to put it in his house. Apparently his roommate will let her in or something, then hide in it all night and pop out of it as soon as he notices it. So I tell her this seems a little extreme, but she does it anyway. Fast forward to that night. I get a call from my girlfriend because Declan apparently attacked as soon as he saw her pop out of the clown thing, totally as a knee-jerk reaction because he didn't even know it was her. Now she wants to continue pranking him. At this point, should I just put my foot down? Update: I talked to my girlfriend about Declan, and I told her that the pranks are getting dangerous, and she's unreasonably close to a guy she's only known for such a short amount of time. She refers to him as her brother and her BFF, but it's literally been 5 months. I thought she would react in a mature way, but instead, she said, almost word for word, "This is why I'm always pranking Declan. At least Declan has a good sense of humor. I wouldn't even need to hang out with Declan if you weren't so uptight." So at least now I have confirmation that she hangs out with Declan specifically because she thinks I'm not good enough. We wind up having a screaming match, and the door rings and she goes and gets it. It's this guy in a giant gorilla costume who barges in. Immediately, I assumed it's Declan, so I attacked him. He takes off the mask. It's Declan's roommate, Chad. Apparently, Declan paid Chad $100 to scare us in the gorilla suit as a diversion because he was right behind Chad. Declan snuck into our bedroom and put ham underneath the mattress cover. So I tell both of these dudes to get out and stop pranking us. I thought I was finally standing up to Declan when finally my girlfriend tells me that the prank was hilarious and she's going to give me time to cool off. She leaves with Chad and Declan. I haven't heard from her yet today, but I saw her post a picture of a bagel on Instagram this morning, so I know she's awake. I still don't know where she slept last night or what happened with Declan. I want to break up because I'm so angry, but weirdly enough, I still really love her. I can't help it, and I don't want to waste 2 years. Final update. I broke up with my girlfriend. I told her pretty much exactly what was suggested. I even told her that I thought her behavior with Declan was already an emotional affair, if not a physical one. Not surprisingly, she flipped out at me and told me I was being controlling. She told me that every ex-boyfriend she's had has been this way, and I fall right into that category. Because she's only kind of living with me, and technically not on the lease, she's just slowly been staying here more often and she has a key. It was pretty easy for me to kick her out. When I asked her if she was going to move in with Declan, she told me it was no longer my business. Anyway, that night I tried to relax. I was pretty upset, but pretty sure in my decision to dump her, and I felt like I could start new, meet someone else, etc. Then I got a bunch of random calls on my phone from a restricted number. When I picked up, nobody was there. So I turned my phone on silent, figuring this was one of her immature schemes, and in the morning I had 60 missed calls from restricted numbers. In the morning, I actually got a text from Declan asking to come over to pick up my girlfriend's stuff. So, yes, she moved in with him. I tried to be civil because I really just wanted to get her stuff out of my apartment, but I also wanted closure. So when he got here, I just told him that his relationship with her directly influenced the breakup and that I know they're together now. Now, this is where things got weird. Declan looks at me, surprised, and tells me that he doesn't think my girlfriend is into him and that he definitely isn't into her. I told him to cut the crap, that it doesn't matter anymore. He seemed to be getting anxious and panicky, so I told him to calm down. I just wanted to know the truth. Then he tells me that he knows he directly contributed to our breakup, but not in the way I think. Apparently, it was Chad, not Declan, who wanted to steal my girlfriend. Chad was too shy and asked Declan to befriend my girlfriend and act as a wingman. Declan has tons of female friends, so Chad thought he would effectively gain her trust and be a good in. Declan insisted the reason he kept pranking her and being goofy was because he was hoping it would paint their relationship as clearly non-romantic. Apparently, Chad paid him back for all the times he had to lose money in a prank. I told him, "Well, that was a stupid plan because my girlfriend moved in with you specifically to be with you, so that sucks for all three of you." Declan got extremely upset and seemed to be practically shaking at the idea that my girlfriend had feelings for him. So now my girlfriend, well, my ex, is living with the guy she has a crush on who has no feelings for her, and a guy who has a crush on her but was too creepy and weird to say it. I hope they all have fun together. I'm sure she will contact me again once it dawns on her that the wrong guy is interested. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that his grown nephew and his girlfriend cannot move in? My husband's nephew moved into his grandparents' home at 16. He's now 24 and is still living at his grandparents' home with his girlfriend that does not work and her 7-year-old daughter. They don't clean much, if at all, and they're sloppy in many ways. Just recently, husband's father passed away, the grandpa, and nephew is still living there without paying bills. We're in the process of closing the estate. He will have to either move or find a way to pay all of the bills. He does not make enough, and his girlfriend, who's 28, does not work. My husband wants to move them into our home so he can keep his inheritance of his dad's 401k muscle cars, etc. I don't want them to move in. We don't have any kids. We're both 40 and we have 3 cats. I feel that if they move in, they will not leave. In fact, I'm about 97% sure of this. The fact that nephew's girlfriend does not work or support her own kid that's not even his really bothers me. I halfway caved and said the nephew can move in, but husband said he's not breaking up a family. They're not married, and I feel this is too much. Husband could give them money to set them up in an apartment or a townhome, something, but he feels that's setting them up for failure. That in a year, he would be back with nowhere to live. I feel this is not our responsibility to take care of grown nephew and the people he chooses to date. Nor is it our responsibility if he goes out into the world and cannot make it on his own. Though I would help them as long as real effort is being made. This has caused a huge rift between us. Husband at this point has said he will do whatever he feels is necessary and I can deal with it. I said in anger that if he does, I'll be moving out along with my animals. I know if they do move in, I'll end up going off on them and asking them to move out. I do not do well with others in my living space. I need my sanctuary or my anxiety goes through the roof. So it's looking like either way, I'm out of luck. So am I the jerk for not wanting to take them in? Edit. The nephew is doing the best he can with the amount he makes and he's trying. His girlfriend is not and sleeping until noon daily. Will not get a driver's license even though we bought her a car. Most mornings she doesn't even take her kid to the bus stop. My nephew has to do it, as well as any effort to clean up. Her kid is in elementary school and is not home between 8 to 3:30 p.m. Edit. Husband has just now went back to work after taking care of his father who passed from cancer. He had to go into his retirement fund to do so and was out of work for 6 months. He wants us to use funds from the estate to replace his retirement funds that were used. Husband has always taken my feelings into account in all things, but this time he doesn't seem to care. I know it's due to stress, and he seems to think that this is the right thing to do. His parents always took in stragglers, but that's not my way. He has an issue with the kid being upset and breaking up his nephew's family. Husband's family has always been low on money. I believe a lot of that was due to taking in all of these people who don't work or contribute. Maybe husband thinks that this is what you're supposed to do. Not the jerk. He chose. His nephew, not you. Time to create an exit strategy. Find an attorney and begin legal separation. Give him 6 months to figure out the stupidity of his position. When he has no one to offset the consequences of his decision, such as living in a messy house, he may change his mind. Not the jerk. This is a hill to die on because it will only get worse if they move in. Your husband is being greedy about the inheritance and may expect you to shoulder the responsibility of housing and feeding 2 useless adults. Legally, if they live with you for any length of time, you will have to go to court to kick them out. If your husband keeps going, move out. The life in marriage as you know it will be over. Or move out and date your husband, but let him live with the 2 slobs to realize the consequences of his decision. My boyfriend and his sister-in-law snuck out to the beach at 3 a.m. So we've been together for a year. We were visiting his parents' house, who lived by the beach, and his brother was also there with his wife. We stayed there last night, and around 3 a.m. I was half asleep and noticed him leaving the room. I thought he was probably going to the bathroom or something. I heard some noises from downstairs, and I wasn't paying attention until I saw from the window that he was going out to the beach with his brother's wife. They came back about an hour later. I still haven't confronted him and was wondering what this could mean. What was it that they needed to do? I don't know what to think. Is it something that I can be upset about? Sneaking around at night isn't cool in my opinion. Update. As much as I wanted to tell you all that it was over nothing, that they just wanted to get out for some fresh air or something else, that's not the case. They were indeed hooking up. I asked my boyfriend about it. Didn't mention that I saw him go out with her, just that I saw him leave the bed and come back later. He told me that he just went to the bathroom and then saw his dad in the kitchen who couldn't sleep, so they had to chat for a while. Liar. I asked his sister-in-law immediately after that, said that I saw her from the window for a second. Was I just imagining it since I was half asleep, or did she go out alone at that time of night? She said that she enjoys midnight breaths and walks alone on the beach. Liar again. I told his brother that I saw them leave. He told me that they enjoy long walks on the beach. He couldn't be bothered to go with them. I thought, liar. So apparently they gave each other the heads up since my boyfriend came to me and told me everything an hour later. Him and his brother don't mind it. They're okay with that sort of thing. So my boyfriend has been hooking up with her for years now. That night was just another moment. He told me that he wanted to tell me when the time was right, or when he thought I'd be prepared so that I could hook up with his brother and they wouldn't need to sneak around anymore. He wasn't even admitting that it was cheating, saying that it doesn't count since it's his sister-in-law, not some random girl. I don't even know what to say to that. He called me traditional for thinking it was cheating. Yeah, I consider that cheating. Call me traditional. So I broke up with him and left him to deal with this weird stuff himself, and I'm actually happier now. The thought of what he was up to all those times really grosses me out. He can buzz off. We wanted to go on a holiday together, now I'm gonna go have fun with my cousins instead. Am I the jerk for saying I'm glad I was adopted separately from my siblings? I'm 28, male. My biological mother was unequipped to take care of kids, but it wasn't something anyone realized until she was already 5 kids in. I was the oldest. I was 5 when my first sibling was born and instantly became a father figure. 3 of my siblings have the same dad, myself and my brother have different dads, and learned how to do everything very young. When my mom was in a good space, she'd help, but I was still doing most of the work. When I was 13 and my siblings were 8, 7, 5, and 4, we were removed from my mother's custody. Our social worker and our first foster home realized that I was struggling to let go of being the parent. I also had other issues they felt would do better with therapy and a home where I was the only child. My siblings were placed in a new foster home where they were eventually adopted. I was placed in a separate home with amazing foster parents who were patient and willing to help me find my way. I was adopted 2 years in when I was 15. I got to be a kid for the first time. I went to football games, prom, was able to focus on school and go to college. I had some contact with my siblings, but their adoptive family made it difficult. Now that they're all adults, 23, 22, 20, and 19, we began to reconnect and get to know each other better. 3 of my siblings have just began therapy. The youngest is hesitant. All of them say that their adoptive parents were amazing, but they resent them for pushing me out as well as not being willing to adopt me. I explained to them that it was the social worker and courts who felt it was best I was adopted separately. They said that was BS and we should have all stayed together. I tried to be neutral and validate their feelings. However, they began crap-talking my adoptive parents and said they were wrong for adopting me and not trying to advocate for us all to be together. That was my line in the sand. I said my adoptive parents did the best thing for me and it's what I needed. The 23-year-old then asked me if I'm happy we were separated. I said I'm not happy about our life circumstances that led to these choices being made, but given they were our circumstances, I'm glad I was given a chance. My 22 and 19-year-old sisters actually understand where I'm coming from and have since come around. However, my 23-year-old brother and 20-year-old sister think that it was a nasty thing to say. I said I don't appreciate my parents being spoken about that way, and I'd never trash talk their parents. Plus, it's my truth just as much as it's theirs when they admit that they had a good childhood and were happy they were adopted. Important info. 4 of us who attend therapy do have family counseling sessions. However, they're about once every 3 months due to insurance, and we won't see her again until July. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'm a separated sibling and went into care at 12, although I'm the youngest. It's crappy. They're likely too young to remember all the details. Just take it as a compliment that they wish they had you growing up. Don't feel guilty either, as it wasn't your choice. It was none of your choices, but what was court-ordered. Your adoptive parents gave you a needed home when you were in need. The only jerks here are the people who kept getting your mom pregnant and didn't step up. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that our marriage is over because he asked for a paternity test? I, 52 female, have been married to my husband for 24 years, together for 30 years. It hasn't always been roses, but we had a lot of fun. Yesterday, we were having a Friday evening drink to relax, and our son, who's 17, asked for help with his gaming PC. I'm the tech, so I tried to give advice. My husband got upset and stormed off, saying that his relax time was ruined. I thought he was being childish and pretty much ignored him. This evening, he told me that in a previous relationship, his partner had lost her pregnancy, and in the investigation, they found that he was infertile, and so she had been cheating. This was news to me. Yeah, we had been together 12 years before I conceived, but I have never cheated on him. I always thought the problem had been mine. He says that our son is not his and he wants a DNA test. I agreed because I never cheated on him ever. I said our marriage was over because of this. He said he knew I would react this way and that I'm a lying jerk. My heart is broken, but am I the jerk? Edit. His ex is a lovely woman, and we are friends on Facebook. I'll message her in the morning. The dementia angle being suggested is a good one and deserves investigating. Yes, parental uncertainty is something that women don't appreciate, but he should have said this before. I would have understood if he had raised it earlier because it did take a while for me to get pregnant. His parting shot tonight was that he didn't say anything at the time because I needed a father for my kid. I pointed out that in previous heated arguments, I would have thrown that at him and left with my son if there was any doubt that he was the father. He was the stay-at-home parent, and I didn't leave him in other turbulent times because I didn't want to leave our son. Not the jerk. If he believed he was infertile, why did he try for a kid with you without sharing that for 12 years? Then why did he wait another 17 years after your son was born to verbalize that he thinks it's not his kid? Update. The next day I messaged his ex and I told her what had happened. She said absolutely none of what he said was true. She lives 5,000 miles away and has nothing to gain from lying to me. She echoed what some have mentioned, that maybe he was having some kind of mental health crisis. We don't live in the first world, and there's only one clinic that does paternity tests, so I told him about it. The boy knows and is happy enough to go get a test with his dad, but to my knowledge, he hasn't done this at all. Tempted to buy one off Amazon and get it shipped here. Anyway, I can't do the test for him. He has to do that. So with some quiet distance, I decided to see what would happen. I did promise, in sickness and in health, so if it is a mental health crisis, I should be there. Also, he won't go see a doctor, so that's kind of tough. Last night, he blew up again over something trivial while making dinner and was shouting, "Shut up! Shut up!" I calmly pointed out that I don't talk to him like that, so off he stomped and locked himself in the guest room, and he's not talking to me at all this morning. I really am starting to think that this may be a mental health crisis. I'm not sure what to do next other than try to remain calm, try not to let him upset me. Also, our families don't live near us. We're from the first world, but we live in the third world. We don't have any family anywhere near. He doesn't work and he doesn't have friends nearby. I have animals to care for and a feral cat colony. I can't walk out and he has nowhere to go either. Am I the jerk for bringing a generic product versus the name brand I was asked to bring? This seems so silly to me, but it's become a big deal, so I have to ask. Last weekend, my girlfriend's family hosted a barbecue. I was always raised to never show up anywhere empty-handed, so I asked my girlfriend's mom what I should bring. She asked if I could grab the Cool Whip for our dessert that she was making. Easy enough. I figured it won't be hard to find, so I decided to wait until morning and grab it on my way there. Well, I get to the store about 20 minutes before the barbecue starts, and they're somehow out of the name brand. They did, however, have some of the store brand's whipped topping. As I didn't have time to go to another grocery store, I just bought the generic brand and headed off. Upon arrival, I hand the bag to my girlfriend's mom. She opens it, looks inside, and gets a weird look on her face. She asks, "Where's the Cool Whip?" I say that the store was out, but this is pretty much the same thing, right? She looks a little irritated with me, but just tells me to make myself at home. As I'm putting my stuff down, I hear her asking her husband to run to the store and grab the Cool Whip. I can't hear the entire conversation, but he must have asked, "Didn't I bring it?" Because then I hear her say, "I asked for one thing, and he couldn't even deliver." Nothing else was said directly to me, but there were a few passive-aggressive remarks throughout the barbecue, such as when her husband arrived, name brand in hand, calling him her hero. When the dessert was served, she again made a comment about how it's made with real Cool Whip. I didn't want to make a scene, so I just took it on the chin. When talking to my girlfriend about it later, she said that her mom was overdramatic, but I should have called her to ask if generic was okay. Or I could have gone to a different store. I asked if there was really a difference, and she said she doesn't know, but it was what I was asked to bring, so I should have communicated better. Again, this all sounds so stupid, but am I the jerk? Not the jerk. My dad is one of those generic bad, name brand good people. My mom and I simply saved the name brand containers, cleaned them out, and replaced them with the generic versions. Trust me, he's never noticed. Also, anyone who's using Cool Whip versus making homemade whipped cream doesn't have a leg to stand on when it comes to taste. The disrespect she showed a guest was gross, and I'd be avoiding her over there if you don't have to. This is a crystal ball into your future if you stay with this girlfriend and she continues to handle her mom like this. You did nothing wrong. This isn't a diamond cubic zirconia switcheroo. It's one where frothed up vegetable oil in a blue tub was replaced by the same frothed up vegetable oil in a different color container, or one of a slightly different shade of blue. You're the jerk. Just because you can't tell the difference doesn't mean that there isn't a difference. You're the jerk. The idea when bringing stuff is to be helpful. You could have brought flowers if you just wanted to bring something. If someone asks for a specific thing, I think you either need to bring it or ask if the alternative is okay. Honestly, store brands can come off as being cheap too. That's why most people use generic. I don't think you were trying to be a jerk, and she was being dramatic, but I understand why she was annoyed. You're the jerk. There's definitely a taste difference, and you should have called to ask or just gone to another store. It's not up to you to change things up just because it's an inconvenience for you. If you're tasked to get a thing and you agree to it, then it should be that specific thing. You're the jerk. You could have called ahead and asked, or planned ahead and gone to the store not on the way to the barbecue. Am I the jerk for leaving my new coworker to figure things out after she reported me for giving advice? I have a new coworker, Steph, who started working here in early October. We work in a department of less than 20 people, and our manager is Steve. Steph is new to an office environment and has never worked in our field before. There's some pretty obvious gaps in her knowledge, and Steve asked me if I could help her out, just until she's got a handle on everything, and I agreed. She's mostly trained now, but she still regularly asks me for help. Steph has been reporting our coworkers to Steve for minor issues, ranging from discussing the election to a coworker receiving a call from her son while at her desk, which technically they shouldn't be doing, but there's not many people in this office, and we're not very uptight about these kinds of things, so long as everyone gets their work done and no one acts the maggot. Steve has to go through the procedure every time, and while he's never said it was Steph, people have figured it out, and it's annoyed them because the meetings take up free time where they could be doing other stuff. She's even reported Steve to himself over our relationship, which has annoyed him too. Steph has noticed that she's not making friends, and 2 weeks ago she asked me why. I tried playing it off, but she insisted she wanted to know. I responded that she was a little quick to report stuff that isn't really an issue, and that while I didn't want to discourage her from reporting in future, her reporting minor things could put the others off a bit. She just nodded and went back to work. Steve called me in the next day, saying someone had said that I told them not to report anything ever. I told him what happened and it was all fine. I then asked Steven if I had to continue helping Steph after this, and he told me to do what I felt was best. So now, I'm just not helping her. She's asked me for help more than once in the last few days, and I've just told her that I'm busy. Steph has noticed my sudden withdrawal from her. She stopped me after work and asked why I've stopped helping her, and I said I have my own work to do. She then said something about how if I'm doing this to make her feel bad, then it's working, but it's also doing everyone else over. Because if she can't complete her own work, then either I'll have to do it for her or everyone else will eventually hit a point where they can't progress without Steph's stuff, and that I owe it to her and to everyone else to act professional and not let this get in the way. The reason I'm now doubting my actions is that she's right. If I don't help her and her work gets backed up, then either I'll have to do it myself or we'll all end up waiting on her to do it. And as a team and as a department, we need to look like we have our crap together right now, or it'll make this whole department look bad at a time the company has hinted at cutbacks, and this just feels petty by comparison. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk? Or is Steph the jerk? Please let us know. That Steph sounds like a real troublemaker. If management doesn't get rid of her soon, they're gonna have much bigger problems on their hands. Team members work with the team, not against it. Psycho, entitled Uber Karen crashes our movie night, gets owned. This happened many years ago, but I remember most of it because it was just so stupid, and I briefly wrote about it in my journal. I'm female, and at the time was in my late 30s, as were the rest of the group. I used to have a friend, she moved so we lost touch, who had an Uber Karen of a younger sister along with her rotten little 8-year-old goblin. I mean, this kid was such a jerk, and her mom was enabling and indulging her. This kid would always take other people's stuff and either mess with it, break it, eat it, or steal it, and would throw a fit if you stopped her, causing mommy to get in your face. Of course, Uber Karen never offered to replace anything. One night, a bunch of us, all women this night, went to my friend's house for a horror movie marathon night. We did movie night 2 to 3 times a month, always with a different theme, and friends and spouses were welcome. And each of us was expected to bring a snack, drinks, and 1 or more movie, usually R-rated. We'd then pick, via mutual agreement, the 3 or 4 we liked best to watch. Suffice to say, young kids were not allowed. We were well into our first movie and 2 bottles of wine when my friend's front door opens and her Uber Karen walks in, unannounced, says she's going clubbing and tries to dump the kid on us because we were staying home anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Friend is mad and refused to watch the kid because, she later told us, A, she's a spoiled, destructive brat. B, Uber Karen didn't call or ask despite multiple warnings. C, this was her time to unwind with friends, not babysit her sister's rotten goblin. D, none of the movies were remotely kid-friendly, and she wasn't going to alter her plans just because sister wanted to go clubbing. And E, did I mention the kid was a spoiled, destructive brat? She didn't say any of this, just gave her a flat no, to which both Uber Karen and the kid threw a tantrum. Turned out she told her daughter she would be having a fun movie night with Auntie. As they argued, the kid took the opportunity to grab the remote and started playing the DVD we had paused when they let themselves in. It was the 1988 remake of The Blob and was mine, and stared watching. None of us stopped her because, honestly, we were too busy watching the sisters fight to notice. Ironically, we had paused it just before a particularly scary/gross scene where someone gets grabbed, pulled under the water, then comes up half melted and screaming before being dragged back under and devoured. Naturally, the brat freaks and starts crying, which alerts Uber Karen, who starts screaming at us for letting her kid watch. I'm paraphrasing here because this was a while ago and I didn't write her words. Our disgusting movies. Pretty sure she also swore here too. Then demanded to know who it belonged to. Since I hated Uber Karen, I got up off the couch. But surprisingly, so did another friend, who I'll call friend 1, a very buff, sporty girl who Uber Karen hated and actively feared. This was because they had gotten into a fight the year prior when Uber Karen grabbed friend 1's fiance at a party. And no, she wasn't drunk. Then slapped friend 1, who promptly knocked out Uber Karen in front of everyone. Friend 1 glared at her, then said, "It doesn't matter whose movie it is. What matters is you coming in here uninvited, giving your sister crap for not watching your kid, then getting ticked off when your kid again touches crap that isn't hers and ends up scaring herself. Now I suggest you get your kid, turn around, and go home." A smart person would have done what friend 1 said, but Uber Karen was never particularly smart. Instead of leaving, she turns to me and starts getting in my face, probably figuring I wasn't going to retaliate because she was smaller than me. She's my height, but much slimmer. She was right, but also wrong. I have a temper, always have, but my temper will first manifest as sarcasm, right up until I either reach my BS saturation point or the jerk picking the fight touches me. Then it's game on. And by that point, I don't give a darn if you're smaller or bigger. So she got in my face, screaming at me, which I didn't really listen to nor care about, except a sentence or two. We needed to care for her kid. What the heck? When she stopped to take a breath, I said, "Why is it our job to watch your kid? It's not like any of us were the ones that had her." Uber Karen actually gasped, like someone in a graphic novel, and yelled in my face, "You have a son!" "Yes, I do," I replied, starting to get really mad. "But do you see him here?" "No. That's because I'm not a self-centered jerk who would bring him to an adult's gathering or dump him on others without asking." This really set her off, and like any entitled moron who can't fight, she tried to slap me. Luckily, she fights like a girl. Too bad for her, I don't. When Uber Karen pulled her arm back, people never telegraph your blows. I moved slightly to the side, grabbed the arm, then planted her into the nearest wall, pinning her arm behind her back. Darn, it felt good. Uber Karen struggled, but I wasn't letting go. I told her she had 3 choices. She could take her kid and leave quietly. I could kick her butt in front of her kid. I'd never do that, but she didn't know that. And by this point, one of the others had taken the kid into the kitchen, but I was too busy to notice. Or I could call the cops, have her arrested for assault, then have her ex, who hated her because she cheated, come pick the kid up. Uber Karen agreed to option 1, but then tried to get my friend to side with her once I released her, because family. Friend responded by taking Uber Karen's keys, removing her house key, and telling Uber Karen that neither she or her kid were welcome in her house and to please get the heck out. The look on Uber Karen's face was one of utter shock. Uber Karen then looked at us all for support. Why she looked at me for help, I just don't get it. But we just glared at her. Realizing nobody would side with her, Uber Karen grabbed her kid, called us all jerks, especially me, and left, slamming the door. Friend apologized to us. No need, we all knew her sister was a jerk. Then immediately called her parents, giving them the lowdown and warning them that unless they wanted to end up watching the brat all weekend, they'd better get in their car and go anywhere else. Uber Karen had done this before many times, and to warn the other relatives as well. Uber Karen didn't get to go clubbing and soon after lost custody of her brat to her ex. Don't know what happened to her since and don't care. I'll try to lawyer if you insist. So this happened in 2015, just a few months after my husband had suddenly passed away. He passed in November of 2014. At the time, I was a bartender and had a small chicken farm, so I worked nights and during the day would tend to my little hobby farm. I say little, I actually had over 50 chickens. This will be important later on in the story. At the time, I had my cell number since about 2011, so about 4 years before I started receiving these calls. Every time an unfamiliar number would come up on my caller ID, it would be a call from someone who's trying to reach a local legal aid attorney or a court-appointed attorney. I would explain that they had the wrong number and most people would apologize and let it go. Sometimes they would turn around and call right back, and again I would tell them, "I'm sorry, but you have the wrong number. I am not your attorney." Most of the time I would let it go to voicemail and not bother with it, unless they kept calling, and then I would let them know they had the wrong number. Again, most people were fine and polite with it. But this one time, we've got the crazy lady that needs an attorney, we've got the actual attorney, and we've got me and the judge. Crazy lady had called several times, leaving a voicemail every time, and each and every voicemail was almost impossible to understand. About all I could understand was that she was trying to reach an attorney and she was becoming increasingly agitated that said attorney was not answering or returning her calls. Eventually, the voicemails became screaming rants with a lot of cursing. Remarkably, I could understand the curse words. Finally, I answered the call, thinking that I would explain to her that she had the wrong number, and then maybe, just maybe, she would quit calling me every day to leave nasty voicemails. Nope. Me. Hello? Crazy lady. This is Crazy Lady, and I've been calling you for weeks now. Not true. And you've been ignoring me. Me. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you have the wrong number. And I hang up. She called right back. Again, I explained to her that she has the wrong number, and she begins to curse and tells me she knows she has the right number. Click, I hang up again. And wonder all of wonders, the nutjob calls again. Crazy lady. You better not hang up on me again, you jerk. I know you work for the attorney, and you are not giving him my messages. Me. Ma'am, I don't know that attorney, and you have the wrong number. Please stop calling me. Click, I hang up again. She calls back. I didn't realize telling someone they had the wrong number for the umpteenth time was so complicated to understand. Guess I was wrong. And she calls again. Crazy lady. I have court. It was either the next day or a couple of days after. It's been years, so I don't remember. Anyway, she has court coming up, and if said attorney doesn't show up for the court, she's going to tell the judge that the attorney took her money and have the judge call me in court, or I'm going to jail. Okay, nutjob, whatever. I knew when the number comes up on my caller ID that it was her number from the part of the county where the courthouse, etc. was located, so I answered. Judge. May I speak with attorney? Me. Sir, you have the wrong number. Judge. I'm not playing games with you, girl. This is the judge, and I better get the attorney there within a few hours. It was late morning, and the lawyer needed to be there by after lunch. Me. Your Honor, I have repeatedly told this lady she has the wrong number. I am not an attorney. I am in fact a bartender at the local honky-tonk, and I am a hobby chicken farmer. I'm not an attorney. Please understand, during this there are several roosters in my yard, ducks and guinea fowl. The roosters are having a crowing contest, and all the animals are pretty rowdy. It is spring after all. So I continue to explain to the judge that I'm not a lawyer, and I'm up to my elbows in chicken crap, cleaning out the coop, which we had been using a deep bed method during the winter, and since it was getting warmer, didn't need to keep that much bedding, and well, it stunk. For the record, every time she called and I answered, you could either hear chickens in the background or extremely loud music from the bar where I worked. I continued to explain to him that I'm sure that I stink pretty bad and that I didn't know anything about being a lawyer, but I had pretty good knowledge of raising chickens and making drinks. I continued to tell him that I could probably make it there after lunch, but that I really needed to finish cleaning out my coops, and I would then need to take a shower and get dressed. But if he really needed me to come be a lawyer, I would certainly try. I remember telling him I guess I could lawyer if I tried, and that I had done pretty good helping my attorney during my divorce a few years before. I did not even give him time to respond until I said what I had to say. Judge: I don't think that will be necessary, ma'am. I apologize for wasting your time. Me: do you think you could tell this lady to stop calling me several times a day? Because I'm tired of being yelled at and cursed out for not being her attorney. I explained to him she had threatened me and harassed me and that I was really tired of it. He assured me he would take care of it. Never heard from Crazy Lady again and would have completely forgotten this until I had a voicemail from someone looking for an attorney. I did later find out from an acquaintance that is an attorney that I do indeed have the number that previously belonged to a legal aid defense attorney. She figured it out when she was programming my phone number in her phone for totally unrelated business. Speaking of chickens, have you ever raised any farm animals? And if not, would you like to? Please let us know. I want to get some goats, bruh. The ones that go "Meow." I saved a sales assistant from a Karen who then stalked me for over an hour. So this happened about 5 years ago. Now, I had worked at this exact store previously, so I was familiar with how their system worked. We have me, 23, female. We've got Karen, in her 40s, and we've got the sales assistant, late teens, early 20s, male. I was waiting in line at a well-known book/stationery store in my local mall, buying a card and gift wrap. Karen was in front of me, arguing with the boy at the register because she wanted to know if they had a book in stock. The book was in stock, but only available when ordered from the online store, as it was old and no longer being sold in the store. So Karen would need to purchase it herself online. When ordering from this company's online store, it will be shipped to the address of your choice via courier. Of course, this comes with additional shipping costs. Karen, however, seems to think this meant he could order the book in and she would be able to pick it up the next day. This is not the case, as the stores, while operating under the same company name, are completely different. Thus, the argument begins. Karen: well, can't you just order it in? Assistant: sorry, our system doesn't allow us to do that. Yes, it does. I've done it before. Sorry, since the company is under new ownership, all stores are separate now, including the online store. It's the same company. You're just being lazy. Sorry, you'll have to order it yourself online. They went back and forth a couple times before I spoke up. Me: he's right. That's not how the system works. Karen turns, glares at me, and says, you work here? Me: no, I did work here a year ago. That's how I know how the system works. Karen: but you work in the mall. She then proceeds to look over my clothes for a name tag or uniform logo. Me: nope, nice try though, as I unzip my jacket so she can get a better look at my civvies. Karen: well, where do you work? Me: that's literally none of your business. Yes, it is. Your employer should know how you behave in public. Me: insert surprised Pikachu face. Me: actually, that's not how the world works, lady. At this point, you could see the rage building inside her as she realized she had no power over me. I too noticed at this point that I was in a unique position where I could call this lady out for basically being a jerk, and there's nothing that she can do about it. Or so I thought. Karen, with a smug look on her face, then says, well, you probably don't even have a job. Me: yeah, I'm not falling for that. She was obviously trying to bait me into telling her. Me: you can think what you want, lady, but at the end of the day, I'm not the pathetic person whose only sense of control in the world is threatening a person's livelihood to get what they want. Me: you know you're a crappy person, right? Karen, absolutely fuming at this point, storms off. I then proceed to pay for my card and gift wrap while having a laugh with the assistant at the register about what had just happened. Now, you would think this would be the end of my encounter with Karen, but oh no, she still thinks I work in the mall. So as I leave the store, I stop and get a coffee from the small kiosk cafe just outside. I noticed Karen was watching me, and I kid you not, this psycho continued to follow me into every single store I entered and asked the person behind the register if I worked there. At this point, I was thinking I can't go back to my car because she'll get my license plate numbers and be able to look up my information. Then Facebook stalked me. I ended up calling a taxi and going to see my dad, who lived about 10 minutes up the road, and got him to take me back to my car an hour later. Sorry kinda long, but this was my best Karen/I don't work here lady encounter. Would you ever stand up to a Karen for a cashier or not? Please let us know. I dare you to try. Am I the jerk for not letting my niece host her wedding at my castle? 28 years ago, my wife and I combined our savings, most of which came from inheritance after my father's passing, and bought our castle in southern Europe. It was actually a derelict farmhouse with some land, but it had a small turret, so our family has always referred to it as the castle. My wife and I decided we'd rather have a small, basic house in our home country and focus our time and resources readying the castle for us to retire in and for our children to enjoy. It took years, but around the time our eldest was born, it was finally finished. It's not massive, 5 bedrooms, and has a small pool in the garden, but it is our paradise. We've always allowed our families and friends to use it whenever they please, and have spent every summer vacation staying there with our kids. Our only stipulation when people stay there is that the master bedroom is off limits. It takes up most of the 3rd floor, with the remaining bedrooms on the 2nd floor. A lot of my and my wife's belongings are in there, and it's also the room we have shared together for over 20 years. Recently, my niece got engaged and held an engagement party on Zoom over the weekend. When asked what ideas they had had so far, she excitedly told me they had actually been planning to ask us if they could hold the wedding at the castle. I was a bit taken aback, but didn't want to outright refuse. I joked it would have to be a rather small wedding since they had struggled to fit more than 25 people in the gardens. She gushed that she had already thought it through and they had put up canopies in the field nearby. We don't own that land, and if all the guests stayed in hotels in the town, she would arrange transportation for us all to get to the villa. My wife and I bit our tongues, not wanting to make a fuss during their engagement celebration. But later, when my niece texted me to repeat what she had said, I asked her to clarify the sleeping arrangements, and after some back and forth, it came to light she planned to use the master bedroom as the bridal suite and for the wedding party to have the remaining rooms. My wife, children, and I would have to stay elsewhere. I slept on my decision and spoke with my wife. On Sunday, I responded and politely refused, saying it's too small and we aren't comfortable having anyone in our room. Both she and my sister blew up at me, telling me I was ruining her wedding and she'd always dreamed of marrying at the castle. My sister even said since I used my inheritance, it's family property, which is obviously ridiculous. ETA, when we texted her on Sunday, we offered a compromise. No master bedroom, and either get permission/insurance to use the fields or reduce guest count to 25. We even offered to host a small rehearsal too, but she rejected the offers. That is why we outright refused. Want the whole bottle? You'll get the whole bottle. So this story was from about 8 years ago, so my memory may be a little hazy. I was around 18, male, and working in a bar in the town center somewhere in the UK. We're based between 2 of the grimiest pubs and the clubs in there, so we got a lot of dodgy, rude, and drunk patrons on a regular occurrence. One night at around 12 a.m., this group of guys came in wearing suits, and I immediately can tell they're pretty drunk and obnoxious. They come to the bar, which was about 2 to 3 deep, and around 20 to 30 people waiting ahead of them. They start loudly asking for service, even though there's people patiently waiting in front of them. Me and my team just roll our eyes and get back to serving people. I get around to serving them, and they all shout, "Finally! What took you so long?" I just ignored that comment and asked what they wanted. They then started talking amongst themselves, like they didn't have enough time to work this out while waiting. The ringleader proclaimed that they are going big tonight, so they want a bottle of Grey Goose. I said, "I can only see you a maximum of a double in any one drink. If you want to make it stronger, go for it." He ignores the most of what I said and just says, "Didn't you hear me? 1 bottle of Grey Goose." We can't sell the bottles of spirits under any circumstances. I call the manager up in the back and explain the situation. He says exactly what I've already told the customer, so we agreed that if explained one more time about how I had to give them the drink and he just said 1 bottle again, I'd do it. What ringleader didn't realize is that I have to put the whole bottle through as doubles, which was about $8.50 per double without any mixers. So this bottle ended up costing him £170 before any mixers when it's only £35 in the local supermarket. He throws his hands up in the air saying I've ripped him off and he's not going to pay that. Why didn't I say anything sooner, etc. I said that I did, and he just blows me off and goes to walk out. Little does he know, I've already asked the bouncers to keep him in the building until he's paid up. His mates laugh at him as he goes white as a sheet, realizing he's just spent a lot of money. His friends give him a little bit of money to help him pay. Ringleader then spends the night sulking with his 170-pound bottle that he could have got for 30. Am I the jerk for losing it when my fiance canceled my job interview? I, 33 male, have been engaged to my fiance, 28 female, for over 7 months, and we're planning on having the wedding next year. Thing is, I've been struggling to find a new job after I lost my previous job due to reasons that are out of my control, and it was hard because I worked so hard for this company and I ended up being told that I was no longer needed. I've been struggling with rent and bills, and my fiance is the one taking care of rent for now, while I take care of other things and help as much as I can. After looking for 4 months, I finally found a potential job opportunity and contacted the company and set up a date for an interview. I've learned that the manager is a lady, and for some reason, that upset my fiance. She told me having a lady as your boss is never a good thing because she says that they can take advantage of their positions and get employees to do things for them so they could benefit. I thought that was just wrong and ignorant, to be honest. She told me to keep looking for other jobs and cancel my interview, but I refused. I wasn't going to throw this opportunity away after looking for months because I feel frustrated and helpless without a job, not to mention not being able to pay for rent and other things since she complains that I don't contribute in anything. She threw a fit and kept bringing it up over and over again. A few days ago, I found out that she used my laptop and canceled my interview with the company. I was so mad when I contacted the company and they told me that they had other potential employees that attended interviews and that I was 2 days late. I yelled at my fiance, especially when she didn't even deny it. She thought I was overreacting and that she'll try and find another job for me. I just couldn't take it and yelled at her for canceling an important interview because she felt insecure. She got upset that I called her out on her insecurities and thought I was in the wrong for how I reacted. She's refusing to even talk about it without me apologizing to her first. I haven't apologized, and she's even more upset, saying I shouldn't treat her like this when she's working and paying for rent and that I should appreciate her for that instead of being mad at her. Entitled Brother Fakes Illness to Milk My Parents of Their Retirement Savings. So I grew up in a middle-class family in a low-income area. My dad built his dream house there, and even though they could afford to move, they never wanted to. My parents had a tendency to spoil my older brother far more than us, mostly because I was the quiet one who never spoke up. This resulted in my brother getting his way more often than me. Nothing blatant, but it was enough to give him an entitlement complex a mile wide. When my brother was a teenager, he struggled with some serious mental illnesses. These were absolutely legitimate and crippled his ability to function for several years. My parents were obviously very concerned for him, and so they willingly paid top dollar for the best psychiatrist and psychologist that they could find to help him. By the time I was ready to go to a different city to start university, my brother was at a stage where he was ready to go as well. It was decided that he would go to a university as the same city as me, and we would live together. My parents offered to pay for our rent all the way through university, so us flatting together obviously made a lot of financial sense for them. We would have to pay for everything else out of our student loans. Everything was set. We had found a good student flat, settled in, etc. He had a new care team in the new city. Awesome. Unfortunately, my brother had an episode on his first day that resulted in him not going to class. This meant he was removed from his program, compulsory first day, with the option of starting again in the second semester. Now, the obvious, logical, and sensible thing to do in that situation is for my brother to go home while I found a roommate to take the spare bedroom and he could move back up and try again next semester. My brother didn't like that idea. You see, he always hated living at home. He would always whine about how old our house was or how poor our neighborhood looked. Our neighborhood was lovely, great sense of community, and I always loved it there. But he felt that he deserved better. Next thing we knew, his new psychologist has written a letter to my parents stating that it would be a good idea to allow him to stay living in the new city, to allow him to acclimate to his surroundings. My parents followed this advice and allowed him to stay. They replaced his weekly loan amount with an allowance of the same value and thought everything would move forward from there. This worked for a few weeks, but my brother started to hound my parents for more money. You see, he wasn't a student, so in his mind, why should he have to live like a student? No instant noodles and TV dinners for him. He wanted steak and lamb for dinner. He wanted to go to nice restaurants with his friends and go shopping whenever he felt like it. He wanted a new iPhone and a new MacBook because his was slow, etc. My parents eventually gave in and doubled his allowance. Second semester rolls around and my brother hasn't even bothered enrolling. My parents weren't happy, but his psychologist writes him another letter and so it continues. Fast forward 3 years, and I'm graduating with a job offer from my university in my field. The apartment is nice and convenient to my new job, so I continue to live there, only now I pay for my half of the rent and utilities. My brother is still not working or studying, and his allowance is now almost equal to my salary. Every time my parents try to force him home, his psychologist writes another letter, and my parents' trust in my brother's care team was high. They did save his life after all. By this point, my parents are just paying for his half of the utilities directly on top of his allowance. I suggested to my parents to get a second medical opinion, as he had been seeing this psychologist almost weekly for 3 years with no improvement, but my brother flat out refuses. He likes her. She speaks to his soul, whatever that means. About a year and a half after I graduate, our landlord decides to sell the apartment and the new owners want to live there. Normal thing that happens, and I'm not bothered by this. I wanted to take the opportunity to get my own place. I have a serious girlfriend whom I want to eventually marry, so would like my own space that she could one day move into, and just generally move on with my adult life. But my parents don't want my brother living on his own just yet, and again, he is refusing to come home. They beg me to stay for just one more year while they figure out an arrangement for him. We got rather short notice to move, so I can understand this, and one more year won't matter too much to me. So apartment hunting we go. My brother goes fully off the entitlement deep end. He will only view apartments well outside of our price range. Anything within budget is either too old, or too small, or too dark, or too ugly. He wants a new, modern apartment in an expensive suburb in the heart of the city. His psychologist writes another letter outlining the importance of a comfortable environment for him. My parents cave once again and agree to rent his dream apartment for us, but I can't afford my half of the new rent. They compromise with me, and I only have to pay the same rent as I was before, which is barely 1/3 of the rent at the new place, mind you. It's a beautiful apartment, so I was okay with the deal, even though I wasn't happy. Unfortunately, my brother is now used to getting everything he wants or needs. He starts asking me to pay for more and more of the groceries. Idiot me, thinking that mom and dad had cut down on his allowance now that the rent is so expensive, agreed to take up some of the slack. Big mistake. They were still giving him the same amount. He just wanted more. He starts asking me for more and more things and then whines to mom when I don't give it to him. My parents cave over and over again and get him whatever he wants. New computer, new MacBook, new iPhone, heck, even a car. Up until this point, my parents could afford all of this and somehow still save well for their retirement. My mom was completely honest with me about their finances, as when the time came, the power of attorney would transfer to me, so she wanted me to know where they stood. They were on track for a long, comfortable retirement, but then my dad unfortunately lost his job through very unusual circumstances. His company just disappeared, and his boss left the country. This messed my dad up for quite a while, and he decided it was time to kick back and enjoy an early retirement. He was only 2 years short of his retirement age anyway. My brother was furious. He would rage about how dad had betrayed him for not continuing to work to fund his lifestyle. He would regularly yell at my mom over the phone, saying that he expects them to continue to support him because he deserves the security of the lifestyle he has earned. I laughed my butt off at that line, which turned into another long fight, but was totally worth it. I knew that without dad's income, my parents couldn't afford the rent where we lived, so I decided to force the issue and moved into my own place. I had hoped that this would result in my brother moving as well, but alas, his psychologist wrote him another letter and he continued to live there. I moved on with my life, got married, went back to university, bought a house, grown-up stuff. 5 years go by, and I have virtually no contact with my brother. I'm visiting my parents one day, and when I take them out for lunch, my mom breaks down crying because she can't pay. It turns out that my brother had been blackmailing my parents to continue to support him, saying that if they didn't, he'd end up homeless and it would be their fault, etc. He still had the full support of his medical team, and my parents didn't know what to do. He had burned through nearly 20 years worth of retirement savings since I moved out. My parents were both forced to go back to work to try and stretch out their retirement savings. I decide to visit the psychologist myself, only to find out that she is one of those tell people what they want to hear so they keep giving me money. Predatory type psychologists who was enabling my brother because he was a cash cow for her. Our entire family was furious. Turns out my brother had been recovered since his first year living away from home. He was perfectly able to work or study, he just didn't want to. And so she wrote him those bogus letters to let him get away with it. He decided to milk my parents of their savings to fund his lifestyle because he had earned it, and they owed him for not giving him what he wanted when he was younger. When confronted about it, he was entirely unapologetic. As far as he is concerned, he was entitled to everything he got and then some. It's been a few years since then, and my parents have completely cut him off. They are surviving, but within a few years, I will probably end up having to support them. I have no issue with this. I'm their son, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do so, but it breaks my dad's heart knowing this. He grew up dirt poor and worked his butt off to provide for us, only to see it all disappear because of my selfish brother. The psychologist had her license suspended after my parents laid a complaint. I don't know if it was temporary or not, but I hope it was permanent. As for my brother, he works a dead-end retail job with a live-in boyfriend who pays for almost everything. He's still an entitled jerk, and I only see him during Christmas. I just want to emphasize, my brother had legitimate mental health issues, and I do not want to take away from that at all. He just chose to willfully deceive everyone about the severity in order to demand that everyone else give him the life he feels he deserves. And before you ask, no, his mental illness did not contribute towards this attitude. It's not that sort of illness. He's just an entitled jerk. Entitled mom gets mad at me for playing Mortal Kombat. Cast. We've got me. We've got entitled mom. We've got the kid. We've got my awesome mom. We've got my awesome dad. We've got the receptionist. This happened a few days ago. Sorry for the formatting. I'm on mobile. Let's set the scene. I'm 14 and I was at the hospital visiting my mom, who is a nurse, in the waiting room, and my brother and I decided to surprise her for her birthday by showing up with flowers and a card. Our dad dropped us off, but couldn't come in because he was in a conference call. He's an IT worker. The receptionist told us to wait for a bit as they were in the middle of a surgery. During this time, I pulled out my Nintendo Switch since I was bored and decided to load up some Mortal Kombat 11. My brother, who didn't really want to play, decided to because he was also bored and because I also kind of begged him to play. I handed him a Joy-Con and we selected our characters, mine being Sindel, my main, and his being Sub-Zero, his main. We battled it out on the Deadpool stage, which ended up in a 2-1 and I won. My brother handed me the Joy-Con, and as I took it, I heard a tap on my shoulder. Here enters Entitled Mom and Kid. Entitled Mom was a classic Karen, blonde hair, 90s clothes, a nasally voice, and eyes that said, "Can I speak to your manager?" Entitled Mom, "Hello, I was wondering if my son could play that nice game you were playing." The kid looked to be around 10 or 11 years old. I smiled and said okay, but warned him it was a bit graphic. Entitled Mom, "I'm sure it will be fine." Me, "Okay then." We started off with selecting characters, and he warned me that he was going to, according to him, kick my butt. I smirked and instantly locked Sindel, splitting hairs, while he picked Noob Saibot, seeing double. He asked to review the moves, and I let him because I wanted him to have a fair chance. He did, and we began the fight. I started the round off with a forward 2-1 combo into an amplified scream. He began furiously mashing the buttons. He hit me with a 2-1-2, which did some decent damage, but it ended up in a 2-0, with me performing the hair today, gone tomorrow fatality, in which Sindel does a quick backwards cartwheel and then uses her hair to grab the arms of her opponent. All of a sudden, I hear Entitled Mom say, "What the heck did you just show my kid?" My brother and I both jumped, and I turned to her. Me, "Miss, you allowed him to play this, and I even warned you that it was crazy. You didn't seem to care." Entitled Mom, "I don't care. You should have let him win and not traumatize him with this BS." She tried to grab the Switch from me, and I pull away, leaning into my brother as she swipes at me again, her nails scratching at my hands. Entitled Mom, "Give me that." My brother turns to her and pushes her away. He's the more confrontational one. "Hey, leave him alone. It's a game that he warned you about. And again, you didn't listen." At this time, my mom walks in and sees the commotion going on. "Mom, what's going on here? Entitled Mom, switching into victim mode, says, "You have to help me. These horrible teenagers tried to show my son a horrible game, and they tried to hurt us." Mom, immediately seeing us, terrified, says, "Boys, what did you do?" We both shook our heads. Entitled Mom then says, "They're horrible kids. They should be arrested." She then turned quickly and gave us a smirk, then switched back into victim mode. My mom said, "I highly doubt what you're saying is true. For one, we have cameras everywhere, and two, they're my kids." Entitled Mom, spluttering, They're your kids?" My mom nods, and Entitled Mom starts going on a rant about how bad of a parent she is, and my dad must have left home for a mistress. He hasn't, but my parents are divorced. My mom immediately went into rage mode. Mom, shut up about my kids. You have no right to judge them for the games they play. I got that game for him for his birthday. You also don't have a right to judge me for being a mother. Receptionist, call security and have them escort this woman out. Receptionist nods, and in minutes, 3 burly guards are there. 2 of them get her out of the room, and the third one stays behind to ask what happened. Entitled Mom's kid is following her, asking why they can't stay. We walk outside to see Entitled Mom getting handcuffed and put in a cop car, and a police officer asked us if we wanted to press charges. We said yes. She was charged with assault, destruction of property, the Nintendo was a bit scratched, and attempted theft. Dad walked over, putting himself on mute so the others in the call couldn't hear him. He asked us what happened, and we gave him our story. He nodded and then apologized before returning to his call by the car. In the end, I decided to post this story on Reddit as my first encounter with an entitled parent. Hope you enjoyed. I will update more in case we have to go to court or something. Speaking of Mortal Kombat, what's your favorite video game of all time? Please let us know. I prefer Animal Crossing myself. You want to lose $100? Alright, sign here. I work in accounting, and my assistant is out on this particular day, so I'm working on invoicing. While doing invoicing, I come across a work order that has a higher expense amount than invoice's amount. Realizing we will be losing $100 on the job, instead of at least breaking even, I decide to question the project manager, Chad, about it. Me, hey, I noticed this job has an anomaly. Can you explain it to me? Chad, what are you talking about? Me, see the expenses? They reach a higher total than the amount you want me to bill for. I want to see if that was a mistake or… Chad, no, it's right. Me, if that's right, we're going to lose money on this job. You won't get commission. And Chad, I'm telling you it's right. Then Chad rips the papers from my hand. See, we charge a 20% markup right here. He points to the wrong spot and has the audacity to look smug. See, it's fine. Me, I calmly take the papers back and show him to 2 amounts side by side. I see that, but you didn't account for that over here for the billing amount. The total billing amount is less than that. Chad, look, it's right, and I don't have time to explain it to you. Just do it and stop bothering me. Me, no problem. Can you just initial here so when our boss asks me why this job is invoiced so low, I can… Sure, fine, whatever. He signs his name next to the billing amount. Now get out of my space. I go back to my office and invoice the too low amount. I sent it off, fully knowing this was going to backfire, and kept all backups and copies handy for when it did. Next Monday, I have the boss in my office. The invoice in question is in his hand. Boss, hey, you did this invoice wrong. Shows me the invoice. Me, actually, if you'll look at the backup, Chad told me that that was the invoice amount. I show him where Chad signed off. Boss, I'll be right back. He left my office. Roughly an hour later, I get called into the boss's office. Chad is there, looking uncomfortable, and my boss is on the phone. He waved me inside and I sat down. Boss, all right, we're all here. Now, Tandy Angie, please explain this to me. Me, I noticed that the expenses on this invoice were higher than the billing amount. Chad told me that the numbers were fine and to just do the invoice. Boss, hear that, Tex? Tex is the subcontractor we used on this job. Tex, yep. So what are we gonna do now? Boss, only thing to do is fire them. They're either incompetent or cheating us. Either way, it's bad for business. I am now very concerned for my job, but I sit silently. I know I don't have the whole story yet. Tex, I reckon you're right. Good luck, and don't worry about the park job. I got an opening up tomorrow I can squeeze in. Boss, thanks, Tex. He hangs up the phone and turns to Chad. Chad has gone from nervous to mad. Chad, It's not my fault she can't do her job. Boss, you signed your name right next to the wrong amount. Now you're either working with someone in accounting over in Texas company to steal from me, or you're too stupid to work here. Which is it? Chad stands, as does my boss. I stood as well, not liking being the only person sitting. Chad says nothing. Boss, you're fired. Get your computer and leave. Boss turns to me. Go ahead and fill out the paperwork for his leave. Make sure to add that he attempted to embezzle money. I nod and leave. Chad stays there. As soon as I leave, the office explodes in screaming. I stayed in my office doing the paperwork my boss asked me to fill out. I saw Chad leave later with his stuff thrown into his bag. That was the last time I saw Chad. A friend saw him working at a cash register at a buffet place about a month later. Turns out, both my boss and Tex had agreed to lower their markups for the job, so the invoice number was still too high, not too low. But I didn't know that until after the fact, when my boss had me redo the paperwork for the entire job. Someone from accounting in Tex's company had altered the invoice sent to Chad, and they were planning on splitting the difference after we paid the altered bill. Have you ever worked with someone you just didn't trust? And if so, why not? Please let us know. I've worked with you every day for almost 2 years and I still don't trust you. Your head is just too big. Am I the jerk for forcing my son to pay back his child support? All names are fake. My wife and I have 2 kids. Our oldest is Josh. He just started his 2nd year in college. Full disclosure, I'm not Josh's biological dad, but I've been married to his mom since he was 8. He's my son in all but blood. Josh has a full-ride scholarship at his college. His mom and I are very proud, and he has ambitions for law school after graduation. A few months ago, we were contacted by Tina, a girl who claimed to have had a baby boy with Josh. The baby is a little under 18 months old. Tina said Josh had ghosted her and blocked her on all platforms. She'd been trying to get back in touch with him, but when that didn't work, she began to look for his parents to contact. She finally found us and begged us to get Josh to talk to her. We were skeptical at first. He said he knew the girl, but denied the baby. We insisted on a paternity test, 2 of them, and they were positive. Tina has gone through the courts and now is pushing for back child support for the baby. Josh is panicking. He doesn't have much income or savings other than a college fund his mom and I have been paying into. He wanted to use that money for his first apartment and for law school. My wife wants to help him pay. The payments aren't much now, but we could afford to. But I'm against it. We, wife and I, agreed that our kids would be responsible for themselves once they moved out. We'd help them if they needed it, but only if it was reasonable. To me, paying his child support for a baby he tried to abandon is unreasonable. He has the money in his fund, he just doesn't want to use it. Josh is afraid of not being able to afford law school without big loans in the future. And to that, I say tough. Should have thought of that before bringing a child into the world. My wife thinks I'm unfairly punishing him, and paying the support now would be investing in both the baby and Josh's future. I have no interest in taking care of an infant again this late in life. I'm fine with being grandpa, but not stand-in dad while Josh gets off scot-free. He needs to step up and take care of his kid. Edited to add. I suddenly have a flood of responses to read. I can't find the info posts I meant to reply to, so I will address some questions here. Tina, according to her, tried to get into contact with Josh while she was pregnant. He denied the baby was his and ignored her. They weren't dating. She attends community college, not his university. She has evidence of multiple attempts to contact him both before and after the baby was born. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. OP's not, but Josh sure is. Few things irk me more than people like him. Hard hat and reflective vest is apparently the new dress code for fast food employees. This happened a few hours ago. A week ago, a construction company I occasionally work for got a contract to repair a bridge over an exit of a highway. They contacted me to be nurse on site for the crew. We started Monday and quickly found out that for coffee and lunch, someone would have to go 3 kilometers away to the nearest rest stop where a cafe and the Golden Arches are. Usually, either me or the foreman would go during the break with all the orders. Today, it was my turn. We had to break early because the crew had to work near a high-voltage pylon and we were waiting for the power company. So I take everyone's order, jump in my car, and drive to the rest stop. Due to force of habit, I'm still wearing my reflective vest with first aid with black letters on the back and have my hard hat with me. And I took my hard hat with me, again from force of habit. As I'm waiting for the line of the Golden Arches, The foreman calls me to say there was a mix-up with the paperwork for temporarily cutting power from the pylon, so we were shutting down for the day. They couldn't work around the pylon because it was on the final part to repair. So the orders are canceled, but I decide to grab a coffee and relax a bit before heading home. I grab my coffee from the cafe and head to the outside tables. In order to go to the patio, I have to pass from the fast food tables. And then, when I hear the dreaded neck clearing and a shrill voice saying, "Excuse me," I keep walking and I hear it again, louder this time, and a hand grabbing my arm. I turn around and look at her. She gets the hint and removes it. She's in her late 40s, early 50s, with a classic hair and haircut associated with Karens, but with a bad red dye job, expensive trashy clothes, big sunglasses, and, thank God, a mask. She stands around 5'2" to 5'3". I, on the other hand, am 6'3", wearing a blue polo shirt, jeans, safety boots, a Bluetooth earpiece, my vest, and the hat on a clip on my belt. The Arch's employee wear red polos with the emblem in gold on the left side, while the cafe's employees wear black pants, white shirts, and brown aprons. We've got me, we've got Karen, we've got the manager and the foreman. Karen: "Where is my order?" Me: "I honestly have no idea." "What? I placed it 10 minutes ago." She's starting to get angry. Me: "Sorry, but I don't work here." And I try to leave. She grabs my arm again. I turn around and I'm getting a bit angry. "I demand you bring me my order." She's still grabbing me. Me: "Remove your hand," I reply with anger slipping in my voice. She complies and I walk away. Karen follows me outside. "This is no way to treat a customer," she shouts. "I demand to speak with your manager." Me: "I already told you, I don't work here." "Oh, will she agree with that?" she says and starts yelling. "Manager! Manager!" Well, speak of the devil and he will appear. The manager of Mickey D's steps outside to see what the commotion is all about. At the same time, the foreman had the same idea as me and had just stepped onto the patio. He sees what's happening and makes a beeline to me. He asks what's happened. The manager is trying to calm Karen down, to no avail. Karen: "I demand you to fire him," she screamed, pointing at me. "He was rude and declined to help me." The manager looks at me, my clothes, and back at Karen. Manager: "Madam, he does not work here. He has a safety vest and a hard hat, which are not part of our dress code. He's just a client like you." Foreman: "And he makes much better burgers than this joint," my foreman adds, making 3 of us laugh. Karen looked at us, then at the manager, and then stomped off. The foreman got a coffee and we chilled for a bit before heading home. So, another day, another I don't work here. First for the month. Speaking of McDonald's, what was the last thing you got from McDonald's? Please let us know. I had those spicy nuggets recently. They were really good. Am I the jerk for telling my brother that his wife ruined her own and his life? Today I went with my brother, I'll call him Sam, to visit his wife, I'll call her Amanda, in prison. Why she's in there is a long story. Basically, Sam and Amanda are very different people. He's quite a simple man. He's got an okay job, welder, which he enjoys and isn't particularly ambitious. He enjoys just having fun with his family. They have a 4-year-old daughter, Lexi. He's basically a giant child himself and loves just running around and being silly and making Lexi laugh. He's a hopeless romantic who doesn't care what kind of life he lives so long as it's with Amanda and Lexi. Amanda is the total opposite. She's a very ambitious and competitive person. She works at a senior executive role at a big company and loves it. She loves the finer things in life. She's got a huge collection of gorgeous clothes, shoes, bags, etc., and always dresses beautifully. Opposites attract in their case, but it's good because they've always brought out the best and stopped the worst in each other. She stops him from treating everything as fun and games and reminds him to have some ambitions like fitness, etc. He stops her from getting too ambitious and competitive and gives her a lot of support with work stress. I won't say exactly what Amanda did to get sent to prison. All I will say is that she did go too far in her attempt to reach a goal and crossed a boundary into something illegal. As Amanda was by far the higher earner, they've lost quite a big chunk of income since her employment was terminated. They've still got more than enough money saved up, and Sam is on a decent salary. The prison she's in is a 3-hour drive from where they live, but he tries to take Lexi to see Amanda as much as possible. When I saw her in prison, I barely recognized her. She's a shell of the person I knew. Obviously, her career is destroyed, and she has no idea what to do when she gets out. This is the first time I've seen her since she got locked up, and she was crying her eyes out. Sam was crying with her and hugging her and promising his sweetheart that all would be well. Obviously, I held her hands and told her it would all be okay, but when we left and were in the car going home, I told Sam I didn't feel sorry for his wife at all. She chose to do people over to get what she wanted. She had a great job, a husband who adored her, and a beautiful kid. But that wasn't enough for her. She still wanted more and committed crimes to get it, and that has ruined their lives. Sam was enraged. He dropped me off at home and told me that he doesn't want to hear from me at all unless I apologize. My husband thinks I should, because he's still hurting and misses her. I don't think what I said was wrong. Sam needs to accept his wife's own role and where she's ended up. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I definitely don't think this was the time and place for that discussion. But what do I know? I'm just a Karen. Am I the jerk for trying to force my stepson to move out of his bedroom so my daughter can move in? I have a daughter and a stepson who I will call Carly and Kyle. Carly is 15, Kyle is 18. They have never been particularly close. Kyle tends to avoid myself and Carly like the plague. He hasn't bothered even trying to build a relationship with us. I've been with Kyle's dad since the kids were 10 and 13. Due to some personal troubles, which I'll not go into detail about, Kyle stays with his dad, though his mother will visit fairly regularly, and they are in constant contact. She, of course, believes me to be the jerk in this situation. Kyle has stayed in the attic since I knew him. His parents had the attic converted into a proper bedroom for him when he was around 9 or 10. It's an absolutely stunning room, plenty of space, nice furniture, and it's currently inhabited by several dressmaking dummies as he is studying fashion at university. Lately, Carly has asked me if she can stay with me full-time. She and her dad are just not getting on, and she'd prefer living with me. Her dad is absolutely fine with this, as he was never really good with her in the first place. This means that the majority of Carly's things will be at our place. She has a lot more things than Kyle, and would most likely need more space. That's why I thought it would be a better idea to have Kyle move into Carly's slightly smaller bedroom downstairs, and Carly can move into the attic bedroom. I even offered to pay for whatever Kyle wants for his new bedroom, regarding wallpaper, paint, posters, etc., as I know it's a bit of a change for him. Kyle is not a fan of the idea, and has been complaining about how he needs the space to work on his uni projects. I told him that he is more than welcome to use the dining room, as we rarely ever use it, and we can clean out one of the storage cupboards to store the dummies in. Kyle's partner is also not a fan of this, though I am almost 100% sure that this is just because in the attic room, they can do whatever they want to without interruption. I think that Kyle is being a bit overdramatic about this, as I'm not kicking him out into the street, just into a smaller bedroom, which I have offered to decorate for him. His father is not completely sold on the idea, but is slowly coming around. He also thinks that Kyle is being a bit dramatic regarding the room situation. Kyle's mother and girlfriend, and of course Kyle himself, all think that I'm being the jerk. Am I the jerk? Edit. The people who are bringing up Kyle paying rent, he pays us £100 per month. He wanted to start paying rent to help his dad out. We did not force him, and we will be expecting Carly to start paying rent when she's old enough too, so that Kyle is not singled out. Yes, Kyle's dad did cheat on his ex with me. His ex-wife was in a bad place, and it put a lot of stress on Kyle's dad. I had not long divorced my husband, Carly's dad, and was in a bad place. We got drunk and did something stupid. Neither of us intended for it to turn into anything more, but it did. I regret my comment about how Kyle's mom should have got her crap together. I was a bit stressed when I wrote that. Finally, you'll all be very glad to know that I'm not pushing the subject any further. Kyle can keep his room. I'll just tell Carly that she's going to get rid of her belongings. Thank you. Second and last edit. I was stressed when I wrote about making Carly get rid of her things. She's going to put her things in the storage cupboard in the dining room. I wouldn't make my kid throw her things away. I was just angry. Kyle is keeping his bedroom. Carly is making do with a smaller bedroom. She has also found the thread and is upset with the amount of hate she's getting in the comments. Does it make you lot feel good to make her cry? You guys can call me whatever you want. I might even deserve it. But my daughter has done nothing wrong, though I'll be sure to let Kyle know that you lot have deemed him Mr. Perfect. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. She's something all right, but I don't know if the word jerk is adequate enough. You know what? Call the cops. I live in a completely unsoundproofed flat with my wife and kid. We sadly discovered it after moving in because the neighbors weren't there when we visited. Crap happens. As every occupant was aware of it, and we all had small kids and agreed upon having 3 rules. Noise kept to a minimum between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. on weekends. Same goes, starting from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. all days. Warn at least the day prior if you plan on a party. Doesn't mean total silence at all. Just not using power tools or blasting music or talking way above normal volumes, etc. It went okay for 2.5 years, but then the above us neighbors moved. They got replaced by a father in his mid-40s and his son about 25 years old. After welcoming them, we warned about the sound issue and the rules to help everyone have quiet time. They said okay and thanks for the warning. Few days go by and the dad brings over his girlfriend, he's divorced, and they made noise all night. Was making me laugh, but around 1 a.m. the lady started singing. So I went upstairs for a very awkward conversation. I just told the out-of-breath sir that again, the building had that again, the building had no soundproofing and that singing at 1 a.m. was a bit too much after that long evening and we would really like to sleep now. He went red as possible and we exchanged a few words just saying nobody's mad but that the sound issue is very real. After that it was okay. But as he realized how much that issue was real, he started going to his girlfriend's place on the weekends and his son started bringing friends over more frequently. We learned he had not one, but 3 sons, so 2 of them aren't supposed to live with him regularly. Anyway, as they invited friends over, it was always in party mode. No respect at all for the rules. I went upstairs approximately 10 times in a few months because we were fed up being obliged to sleep with earplugs and having our kids' naps ruined. I finally decided to talk about this to their father. He was not happy about his sons and told me he'll talk to them, but also was a bit discouraged and tried to tell me, if necessary, call the cops. I wasn't willing to do so because I'm more about peaceful solutions and told him that it won't help keep cool relations in the building. First lockdown came to my country. All neighbors decided to flee elsewhere. We had the building for ourselves. That was a great help for our nerves and sleep. We rediscovered what it was like to live without noise. End of lockdown. Few incidents, but enough to make my wife and I so mad at those kids that we weren't talking anymore, but screaming at them. Then one of them told me, "You know what? Call the cops." I didn't do it that time as they shut their noise afterwards. Second lockdown started about 2 weeks ago. No neighbors moved that time, except for their dad. As soon as he left, we heard more noises than the average above us, but not enough to trigger us at first. The second day, we realized there were at least 5 people in that flat, and they started partying. Not loud music, but music anyway. Talking loud to each other from both ends of the flat, clanging chairs, slamming doors, until 1 or 2 a.m. each night. We hoped that they'd leave soon, or at least calm down, but not at all, and no sign of the dad. 10 days in, our cup was more than full. We went upstairs to again tell them to stop making so much noise, and that it was their last warning. The day after that, same story. I was furious. I screamed at them to shut their music right now, 11 p.m., and that their friends had to leave by tomorrow or I'll make sure to call the cops. "Oh, just call the cops. Nobody's moving. We live together as co-renters." "Oh, really?" I called the cops. Lockdown is in effect. You can be with family, sure, but not with friends like that, and knowing the building's landlord, I was sure their situation wasn't official at all. Cops came, told them the brothers could stay, but the friends had to go back to their place. They gave no fine for this time, but they had to make sure I would not have to call them again. They told me not to go see the neighbors if it happens again, but just directly call them back. The next morning, we also decided to call the landlord to explain the situation. No father in sight for over 10 days. At least 3 unknown persons living with 2 family members. Lots of noise every day and night. Refusing to make any effort and claiming to be co-renters. Landlord wasn't happy. Told me I was right to call the cops and to warn him about the rent situation. He told me he'll call their father right away. Same day, late afternoon, I started to hear some movement above. People running left and right. Just before dark, I was pleased to see that those 5 young adults with their luggage exiting the building and going toward the train station. Cherry on the cake, I saw one of them giving the finger behind him in the building's direction. I laughed so hard. Calm night with a smile on our faces. Am I the jerk for not paying for my daughter's wedding and university? When my kids were born, my husband and I were determined to put aside money for their university/weddings/lives. We're not particularly well off, but managed to scrape together almost $30,000 for each of our kids by the time they were mid-teens. When our daughter, who's 24, was 17 or 18, she became involved in a very cliquey group of wealthy girls who were constantly showing off to each other. Long story short, but in an effort to impress these girls, our daughter committed identity fraud against me in order to open several credit cards and buy a car. She had no job and no way of paying the almost $45,000 of debt she incurred. My husband and I declined to press charges against her, but we wound up with $45,000 of debt that we couldn't afford to pay off. We ended up having to use the money set aside for our kids' futures. We made it clear to our daughter at the time that she would no longer have that nest egg and that she would have to pay us back for the $15,000 taken from her brother's future nest egg. She got a job at a fast food place, went to therapy, did everything we asked, and turned into a respectable adult. She never went to university, but has worked her way up to being front-of-house manager for a small restaurant, and we are proud she has turned her life around. Our son turned 18 in January. He was supposed to go away to university in England this year, but ended up taking a gap year instead because of what's going on. As promised, we gave him the $30,000, and he has put most of it into a fund for university and future traveling and spent the remaining $4,000 on a car so he could get to his job. He works at a plumbing store. Our daughter came home for the first time since before lockdown to tell us she was getting married to her boyfriend of 3 years. We were super excited and thrilled to see her. However, when she saw her brother's car in the driveway, she asked how he bought it, and my husband reminded her of the fund. Long story short, she's now upset that we have given her brother $30,000 despite being reminded about what she did and how much it cost us. She is now demanding that if we want to be invited to her wedding, then we have to give her an amount equal to her brother. Honestly, we're heartbroken. We simply cannot afford to give her that kind of money, even if we wanted to, and we thought she understood our position. I feel like a terrible mother for letting her down, but my husband is resolute that we did the right thing. Are we the jerks here? Edit. I should make it clear, as I see comments assuming otherwise. She did pay back the $15,000 for her brother's nest egg. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. I wouldn't want to go to her wedding anyway. Her entitlement makes me look like Mother Teresa. My house shares a similar address to a local retail store. I moved to a small countryside town a couple of years ago. I live on a road with a dead end for traffic that has a walkthrough to the local shops and a small shopping precinct. The precinct starts across the road from the end of the walkthrough. The shops on the precinct are numbered 1 through 20, as it's not very large. There are only a handful of houses on my road, so again, we have small numbers associated with our address. So my number reads 5, my street name, town, local postcode. The precinct store reads 5, the precinct name, my street name, town, and the same local postcode. On a few occasions, it's become apparent that people have just put in the street name and the postcode when looking for the store. Their satellite navigation has then brought them to my road, and they have looked for, I guess, number 5. Normally, when I get a knock at the door, I explain to the store's customer and point them in the right direction. There's a small car park for the precinct. They often apologize, and some even feel embarrassed. One day, around 6 months ago, I get a Karen. My front door pops loudly. I wonder who could be making such a racket. I open the front door to see a lady around her mid-40s, very well dressed, the very well pampered type. Karen: I've come to pick up my balloons. Me: Oh, are you looking for the store? It's in the shopping center. There's no way through by car. Let me give you directions. Karen: Hang on a minute. My satellite navigation said this is the address. She's holding up her phone with Google Maps. Yeah, that happens a lot. However, your satellite navigation is wrong, and the shop is in the precinct. My satellite navigation is not wrong. I'm in far too much of a hurry for this. I would like you to stop messing around and get my paid-for balloons. Me: Sorry, but I'm a private home, not a business. Bye. I shut the door, and Karen proceeds to start knocking my knocker again and demanding I answer the door. After a few minutes, she stormed off, and I could see through the window she was talking angrily on her phone and walked off down the road towards the walkthrough, leaving her car in my driveway, blocking my own car in. Around an hour later, she returned with her balloons and other shopping bags, got in her car, and left. A couple of days later, I went into the store to talk to the owner about it, if it was a possibility to email customers when they purchase online regarding their address situation, as I was a little annoyed by Karen. When I explained about Karen, the owner said she knew exactly who I meant. Karen had called the store and had ranted at them the whole time the owner was giving her directions to the store. When Karen had got to the store, she had ranted how I had wasted her time and been rude to her, and how the store needed better customer service. I'm in the UK, so a shopping precinct is, I guess you could call it an open-air shopping mall, as it's not enclosed as such. and is a lot smaller. Am I the jerk for not donating any of my hair? I, 19 female, have a little over 3 feet of hair. It's naturally on the thin side, but I've been good about taking care of it, so there's no breakage or heat damage. People ask about it occasionally, but usually they're just curious how/why I've grown it so long. To answer, in case anyone is curious, I don't rinse out the conditioner all the way, and I manually detangle every knot instead of ripping through them with a brush, and I just like having long hair. It's not religion related or anything. I do have one person in my life though, who I'll call R, 20 female. She has a much younger sister, E, who's 8, who has alopecia and is very insecure about being bald. Their family doesn't have much money and can't afford a wig that E can wear since she also has allergies to one of the main ingredients in synthetic wigs. R told me about this a week ago, and she contacted a wig making place who said they could provide a big discount if the family could provide the hair themselves. She asked me to donate my hair, and I said no. She wasn't initially upset and didn't press me at first. I don't think she expected me to say yes right away, but she has become steadily more persistent over the past few days. She keeps calling me selfish, saying I wouldn't even miss it, and that I don't need it, since I'm not growing my hair for religious reasons. I absolutely would miss it, since they would need about 16 inches for a full wig because my hair is so thin. I also have psoriasis, so I'm a little irrationally attached to my long, pretty hair because my scalp is so gross. R asked again tonight, so I told her my reasons. She snapped. She told me that how much I love my hair should show me just how insecure E is without any hair at all, and that it would make it a really meaningful gift. I also found out tonight that she already told E I would be giving her my hair, so she said I'd be breaking E's heart if I went back on it now, even though, again, I never said yes. R just left furiously, and now I'm wondering if I'm wrong here. I'm pretty confident that what she did is a huge jerk move, so I'm not asking about that, but I can't really argue with her assertion that I don't need it. Is it selfish of me not to donate my hair when her sister doesn't have any? Update. I set up a time to call her parents and just talk to them, and wow, R was lying to me about a bunch of things. Luckily, she didn't actually tell E that I'd promised to donate my hair. She also failed to tell me that the family had contacted several other people and a couple of charity groups. Apparently, because she has a form of alopecia where her hair grows back and then falls out again, she's not eligible for a lot of the typical charity groups, but there are still some that might help. They've come into contact with plenty of people who are willing to donate hair, so mine isn't an issue anymore. I also got to talk to E, who tried to apologize for her sister after her parents asked her about all this, and I reassured her that R just loves her and is trying to take care of her. We chatted for a while, and she told me about how she's learning to crochet sweaters and she wants to be a herpetologist. I told her that although it might feel weird to be bald, she can do cool things that I can't with hair on my head, like henna. I sent her parents a couple pictures of henna on bald heads to show to her, and she's apparently really into the idea. So I told them I'd send a couple of tubes, since my roommates are Indian and have a bunch on hand that they're happy to give to E. R is an artist with some henna experience, and I know she'll do a great job. I really hope it helps E's self-esteem until they can get her a wig. A couple of people said that R probably just behaved this way she did out of concern for E. I agree. She's had some difficulty connecting with her in the past because of their age gap, and I think she really wanted to be the one to provide a solution to show E how much she cares. R doesn't usually behave like this, and I know she's under a lot of stress because she has a really heavy course load, but also had to get a job last month to help support her family. So looking back on it, I completely understand her lashing out. I texted her asking to talk later and explained I'd talked to her family about everything, and I hope she responds. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is her friend the jerk? Please let us know. If a friend wants the hair for her sister so bad, why doesn't she grow it out herself? I got fired over a dime, but oh, did I get revenge. This happened years ago. My actual first job working for a pay, we got paid in cash. This is important later. Just a little background. My first job was working at a local drive-in. Yes, I'm that old. Anyway, anyone who has worked in a movie house knows how much work there is to do for an insanely short period of time, and then it just drops off. Same with a drive-in. Only the folks never stopped coming in, and at intermission it was chaotic. When our shift started, we had to make popcorn for the entrance. We sold boxes there, enough for the snack bar to use, boil the hot dogs and set up the french fries to drop and get the oil heated up for steak fingers, fries, tots, etc. So there was a lot of activity when we started. Our manager at the time was a 30-ish guy whose wife managed one of the other drive-ins close by. He was a tyrant. Had us come in on Sundays just to fix speakers without pay because in his words, we got paid for doing this job during the week. This drive-in was the only 2-screen drive-in in town. That meant on any given night, there would be 2 prime movies followed by a B movie on each screen, the kind you might use for other activities. At a drive-in, our work rotation consisted of cashier/ticket at the gate, sometimes 2 pair for a new release, and 5 to 6 working the snack bar. We all rotated jobs so everyone had a chance to work at the gate. Whoever was giving tickets had to wear a pair of white overalls, as dealing with a lot of cars, things could get messy. The ticket part of the job was to take the money from the driver, hand it to the cashier, and then give back whatever change they needed and tear the ticket in half to give them their half and put the sold half in a jar. That way, the money would be equal to the ticket sales. More on that after I finish this part of the story. Anyway, one night I was scheduled for ticket. Loved that part, as you'll find out. We were having a really good Friday night, about 200 cars with 3 to 4 people each. Prices were by the carload and $5 got you in. I also sold popcorn at the gates, so I had my own money-making bag and about 100 boxes of popcorn to sell at 50 cents a box. All well and good. We closed the gate when the opening feature started. The commercials, promos for future movies, cartoons, etc. We counted up our money, both from ticket sales and popcorn. The cashier counted her money and said, "I'm a dime short." "Are you sure?" I asked. I counted, and sure enough, she was a dime short somehow. I had made a bit extra in my count because some folks didn't want change back, so I had a few dollars more than the boxes of popcorn I sold, so I took a dime from my bag to make hers balance. We head back to the snack bar because we still had to help get ready for intermission. Yeah, remember I said we had 5 to 6 to work the snack bar? On weekends, it was usually 5 to 6 to work both sides of the snack bar, so it was going to be real busy for most of the evening. We get back to the snack bar, and immediately the manager, who has had a few, starts counting our bags. I mentioned that cashier was a dime short, and I gave her a dime from my bag to balance hers. I never got the chance to explain I had tip money. This is how the conversation went. "You're fired." "For a dime?" "Yes, if she was short, she would be fired and have to explain why." "But I had tip money, so I could balance her bag for the night." "Tip money should have come to me to distribute, not for you to use how you feel. You're fired." So I'm sort of glad I can get away from this job. During the summers, when we were out repairing the speakers, it got insanely hot and zero shade. We got no breaks for water or bathroom or got paid for the hours we put in. Okay, I'll leave and pick up my pay on Friday, and I started to walk out. "Wait, you have to finish up before you go." "No, I don't. You just fired me. I guess you'll have to help tonight." He never helped. In fact, we rarely saw him once the movie started, and on Friday/Saturday nights when we were really busy, he brought in female companions for the evenings and locked himself in the office. During the week, he would get drunk and pass out. Then we'd open the doors and enjoy the movie while getting ready for intermission. We'd close them right before because the tyrant wouldn't let us watch the movie even if we had nothing to do and was always hovering around at intermission. I felt bad for his wife. I had worked a couple of weeks for her since she was short-handed, and her and the tyrant were used to helping each other, so all the women that would show up on weekends were there as his entertainment. Anyway, I get in my car, find an empty spot, and watch the rest of the movies for the night, wondering about getting another job. I could have ranted about the dime and argued what I did was the right thing to do, but it would have fallen on deaf ears, and since the next payday was Friday, the owners would be in the main office counting cash and checking records for the 12 drive-ins in the city. I show up and knock on the door to be let in, as the office is locked all the time. I explain what happened and was there for my pay. The owner is a little upset that I did what I did with a dime, but that it wasn't worth firing me for, and I should have explained the tip money. I said I was never given the chance to tell my side. On another subject, did you know that manager was bringing in people to hook up with on Fridays and not paying us for working on Sundays when we repaired speakers? They didn't know about the hookups, the drinking, or the fact he had turned in time for us working, but took the cash out of our pay and pocketed it. This is Friday night. I have to go to the movie tonight. I go alone and pick a spot near the door to the snack bar. About an hour into the movie, the manager arrives with 2 girls, and they look like they've already started to party, and they go in. 5 minutes after that, a sedan and a police car drive up to the door and 2 men get out of the sedan. The owners with the police. Not 5 minutes after that, his wife drives up, mad as heck, stomps her way into the building. You could hear the screaming over the volume of the speaker for the movie. The door flies open. His friends are literally tossed into the yard. The police come out with the manager half dressed in cuffs, and the wife is getting him with a broom. It was a sight. I was told he was charged. His wife left him, took over managing most of the drive-ins for the owners, and folks had a good time. Everyone got back pay, including me, so it all worked out. Oh yeah, ticket sales at the gate. Since all of us who worked there were getting crapped on every day, we came up with a little scam of our own. Part of the ticket job was to tear the tickets in half and keep one half for the office, the other for the purchase jar. Well, what we did was tear the ticket in half, give the half to the driver, and then give the next guy the other half of the ticket. $5 to the cashier/ticket duo. Do that for an evening, and it was an extra $50 for the night. More than what we got paid for the week. We were all in on it, and since we were scheduled evenly, no one complained about it or felt left out. Manager got convicted for that too. Have you ever had a horrible boss? And if so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. I've had a horrible co-host, I can tell you that much. Am I the jerk for milking my golden grandchild status to help my family? I know about narcissistic parents and all of that, but in this case, it's my grandmother who is the narc. She is very vain, very much a big Jesus fan, and is cheap as heck 50% of the time. I'm the favorite grandchild by a long shot. She doesn't like who my aunt married, the mom of my 2 cousins, and she also doesn't like my cousins' partners. My uncle, grandmother's son, never had children. Grandmother was completely unenthusiastic about her great-granddaughters from cousin A, Cassie, and barely enthusiastic about her great-grandson from cousin B, Laura. She hardly acknowledges any of them, makes disparaging remarks, and barely seems to give a hoot about any of them. Me, on the other hand, she'll give me almost anything, including access to her credit card and a bank account she hardly uses. She told me I could buy whatever I wanted as long as it wasn't illegal and it didn't clear out above a certain amount each month. Recently, Cassie's apartment suffered severe fire damage and Laura had her son this year. She wasn't inclined to help either of them, saying that the fire wasn't her fault and Laura could handle her own crap. Yet, she will donate to strangers and favorite family members. So, I used that same credit card and bank account. Cassie got a couple $100 towards the GoFundMe set up for her family and replacements for some of the things the girls lost. Laura got some sweet, sweet baby supplies. Grandmother found out recently though, and is hopping mad that I used her money to help them. The same money she told me that I could do whatever I wanted with. She's not threatening to cut me off, yet, but she's made her displeasure with me clear. She says I should have known better than to help them. I pointed out that she said I could do what I wanted. Am I the jerk here? Edit. 1. Why not use gift cards / give them cash / the gifts directly? We live in different countries. I had intended to go there myself on my own dime earlier this year, but this thing stopped me. 2. Why not use your own money? I kinda did as well. Say I gave Cassie $1,000. $500 of it was my money. I used grandmother's account to give them extra. 3. My relationship with grandmother? I love her, but despite everything she's done for me, she also has her foul moods against me as well. She doesn't like it when I call her out on it, but then after she gets it out of her system, it's back to being her usual self. I'm also her PA of sorts, driving, appointments, bills, sometimes with my money when she refuses to pay them, pet care, etc., plus my actual job. Cousins and aunts' relationship with grandmother? Cordial. They send messages, pictures, call occasionally, and visit when they can. She once got mad they couldn't come visit her because they couldn't afford it at the time. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their grandmother? Please let us know. Nothing wrong with what OP's doing, except for getting caught. Throw away expired stuff? Stuff that doesn't have dates? Alright. Back when I was in a culinary class, I could always tell my teacher didn't like me that much. She would never allow me to participate in after-school events and would make me do dishes or other chores instead. Not what I signed up for when I took the class, but fine. You want me to learn professional skills? I get it. But your job as a teacher is to give every student the experience of learning culinary skills in a culinary class. She would also tell my brother, one of her star students, that I was annoying and send me out on errands outside the class so she wouldn't have to see me. But anyway, one of these chores she wanted me to do was to go through the cabinets, refrigerators, and shelves to throw away anything expired. She also wanted me to throw away anything that didn't have a date on it, 'cause when in doubt, throw it out. So I did. But the problem is, none of the spices on the spice rack had any labels or dates on them, and all of them had varying levels of use. I'm not a complete jerk, so I didn't throw out all the spices. I just threw out the ones that seemed to have a good amount missing. That way, I knew the spices were somewhat old. I just threw out enough for my teacher to notice. She noticed pretty quickly, and she prompted me to stop, to which I reminded her that I was throwing out the spices that didn't have dates on them. That pure look of annoyance and defeat was satisfying to me, as she told me to sit down and that she'd have someone else do it right. So then I got to sit at the table and do nothing instead of doing chores that her golden students could do instead of smoking and skipping class. Maybe the reason they were staring at me throughout the ordeal was because I got a bit too close to a substance that was definitely basil. Now they had to dig through the trash to make sure I didn't get rid of any of that pretty pungent, expensive, important basil. Just kidding, I didn't know about any disguised substances on the spice rack, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, teacher mad, students mad, but they can't punish me because I did what I was told. And then the next semester, the class mysteriously disappeared from my schedule, which was very interesting to me. But I didn't care, because I wouldn't miss the days reaching down the sink as I was the only one in the class who had the courage to. I do feel bad for those kiddos I used to let sample some cookie dough if they were alone in the kitchen and vowed to tell nobody. But ironically, visiting the class revealed that after the incident, there were new spices, but they too were unlabeled. I call upon my successors to right what is wrong. If you can hear me, empty the spice racks and look for the mythical time. Am I the jerk for canceling Thanksgiving? I, 40 female, have hosted Thanksgiving for my family, husband, kids, mother, siblings, and their spouses for the last 20 years. There was never an issue until my brother met his now wife, Julie, 5 years ago. Julie is very big into diets, Atkins, keto, South Beach, and every year she sends me a list of foods that she cannot eat and a list of things that she can eat. Last year, I cooked her the exact keto foods that she wanted, and she was upset the entire meal because my brother didn't want to eat it with her, so they fought at the table. Last week, she sent me a text message that she is now on the fertility diet as they are starting IVF, and sent me another list of foods that she cannot eat and a planned menu for me to cook for her. I texted her back and told her that this year I was making one meal and one meal only, and she could either eat what was being served or bring her own food. She texted back and told me that I was being selfish and didn't care about her. My brother called me up the next day and asked if I was happy about ruining Thanksgiving and started to yell about how at their barbecue last summer they catered to my food allergies. I am deathly allergic to strawberries and have an EpiPen. I told my brother that this was not the same as a life-threatening food allergy, that this was a dietary choice and it changes every year. He called my mother, who told him that we all find it difficult to keep up with Julie's dietary needs and that if she wants special foods, she needs to bring them herself. Now my entire family is fighting with each other. My brother won't speak to me, and my sister-in-law is posting nasty things about me on Facebook. I talked to my husband about this, and he said this was ridiculous high school BS drama. He told me he would be fine canceling the whole meal and it just being our family. I agreed with him and sent everyone a text message. I told them that Thanksgiving at my house is canceled, that I am serving Thanksgiving menu. If they want to come over and eat with us, they are welcome to do so. My sister is thrilled that I finally said something about it. She hosts Christmas dinner and is also tired of cooking extra meals. My mom, however, is upset that we are all fighting and thinks that I shouldn't have canceled the meal. Now I'm starting to feel guilty, but my husband and my son say that I need to stand my ground and not give in to Julie and my brother. So, am I the jerk for canceling Thanksgiving? Well, who do you agree with? OP or her sister-in-law? Please let us know. If her sister-in-law really acts like that, I wouldn't want her at my house at all, regardless of the food issues. Entitled Aunt uses us as free babysitting. Let me start by saying this. I think if two people want to have a bunch of kids, that's great. I love kids. I want to teach elementary one day once everything calms down. I have issues with people who dump their kids on others and are just plain crappy people in general. I'm not related to this lady by blood, and I don't even call her aunt. She lives across from us, but used to live a few houses down with my uncle and their 4/5 kids. Out of all their kids, I like the oldest the most. Their oldest kid, Dee, is in 6th grade, and she's not treated great. She's constantly yelled at and blamed for things her siblings do because her mother can't be bothered to watch them. I honestly doubt Dee will stay in contact when she's old enough to move out because of how they treat her. The rest of my cousins, while I love them in small doses. Before all of this started, they would enter our house and property without permission and play with our things. I keep fish, and I had to hover over my tanks to make sure these kids don't bang on the glass and stress out my fish. I always hid in my room and refused to interact with these kids. I used to have to babysit them before my mom realized I didn't like doing that. So eventually, the cousins were told to leave me alone, especially after I developed a pretty short temper with them. I yelled at them to get out of my room, and eventually it became the only place in the house the cousins would not enter, and thus the place my siblings could hide things they didn't want my cousins touching or breaking. Bit of a jerk move, but whatever. My mom never stopped them because they were young, and also my aunt just didn't really give her much of a choice. She'd complain about how hot her kitchen got when she cooked, and that's why she couldn't cook. Never mind that in the summer, all the houses just got hot. We lived in the outskirts of the ghetto. These houses aren't gonna stay cool. My mom cooked for them because she felt sorry for them. My aunt would also ask us to watch her kids for a little bit and then leave for hours on end. We dealt with screaming 1-year-olds all day if we ventured outside my room, along with tantrums and just general stomping around our house. None of us are noisy, and we actually maintain a quiet house, so none of my siblings were happy, but these were our cousins. We're not allowed to complain. This lady also constantly gossiped, and eventually our other aunt stopped talking to her because of how much of a gossip she was. She also tried to treat me like her kids, which I didn't like. I did my best to respectfully and politely ignore her and quickly return to my room. She also compared Dee to me in a pretty bad way, acting like Dee wanting to not go to parties and stuff is a bad quality. When you have a big family, you just eventually stop wanting to engage. I told this to my mom and told her that the next time my aunt tried that, I would not be respectful. I thankfully moved out before that happened. She also showed up unannounced and ate our food and just took up a lot of my mom's attention and time. There would be times my mom would just politely listen to her for hours. We started locking our gate after that. Did I mention they had a dog they didn't take care of until I alerted the SPCA? Now for the real bit of entitlement. My aunt began working and she would leave her kids alone at home. Bear in mind, Dee is in 6th grade and the youngest is a 2 to 3-year-old. They would be left alone for hours at a time. My mom brought up how this was very dangerous to my aunt. This was following me telling my mom I would report my aunt if she didn't find anyone to watch them. I had started work at an elementary school and just was generally done with my aunt's crap by that point. My aunt did not take kindly to her parenting being questioned. According to my mom, the conversation went like this. Mom, I don't like how you're leaving them alone. They're by themselves all day, and Dee is too young to be responsible for that many kids. She deserves to have time to be a kid and have fun. My aunt, well, I'm not the only one who leaves their kids alone. This was in reference to my mom leaving us home alone prior to my being a legal adult. Except, my mom never left me in charge or home alone until after I turned 15 and was mature enough to be trusted. My mother pointed this out, and my aunt has stopped talking to her since. Her kids have not come over, and my siblings straight up celebrated. Eventually, my aunt got her brother to watch her kids while she was at work. We still lock our gate just in case. My siblings and I made an agreement to never pull this crap with each other. None of us want to be in charge of someone else's kids. The Beggar Bride. I was friends with a girl who was soon to be a bride. We had been friends for years, and when she got engaged, I was so happy for her. Due to being big in crafts and my love for crafting with epoxy resin, I offered to handcraft her centerpieces for free as a wedding gift. But as she was organizing her wedding, I became aware of just how much of her wedding she wanted everyone else to pay for. It started where she said she couldn't afford the bouquets, so my mom offered to make them. Then she complained that she couldn't afford the shoes she wanted. We were close friends, so I put some money aside and I gave it to her for the shoes. Shortly afterwards, she bought a rabbit and hutch, so I quizzed her about it and it was totally dismissed by her. A few weeks later, she comes to me and says she can't afford something else for the wedding. She's in a better financial position than me, and when I refused to give her money for it because I honestly couldn't afford it, she flipped out at me. It kept happening, and the more I refused to give her money or buy stuff for the wedding, the more she would flip out at me. Then, one day, she calls me out of the blue and is distraught because she can't afford something for her wedding. Again. And I told her I couldn't afford to pay for it and that my son needed new clothes. And she said to me, "Your son can go without. This is my wedding." My son is growing and was in need of new clothes. No way was I making him go without for her wedding. After that, it was her bachelorette, which she had a go at me for because I hadn't paid for the entire party. After all of the money I'd put into her wedding, there was no way in heck that I could afford her party as well, and I kept telling her this. I asked her if we could put off her party so that I'd be in a better financial position for it, but she refused, telling me to take the money out of my savings. I stopped hearing from her after that, and a few months later, she accuses me of being a terrible friend and said that she couldn't be friends with someone like me. We haven't spoken since, but I've put in about $50,000 to $1,000 into her wedding and bachelorette party because I wanted her to have an amazing day, and she kept saying she couldn't afford stuff. She hasn't spoken to me since, and honestly, I couldn't care less, but I thought I'd share this story. Being a shy and overly nice person meant that every time she said she couldn't afford something, I'd try to help until I started seeing that the money she could have been spending on her wedding, she was using to go on holiday or purchase pets or buy herself nice things she didn't need. When I stopped, she dropped me as a friend and told everyone I was a horrible friend that used her. I'm glad she's gone from my life though, as the stress she kept putting me under for her wedding was really starting to get to me, and there were even a few other things she did, non-wedding related, that really put me in a bad place. But her entire attitude was so entitled. Last I heard, she had someone making her wedding cake for free, had convinced one of her family members to buy her wedding dress, had someone make her bespoke shoes because she didn't like her old ones anymore and had got them to do it for free, had arranged for someone else to pay for her makeup and hair, etc., and had someone else pay my mom the small fee, $50, which was a fraction of what the materials cost to make them all, for her flowers out of their own wedding budget. I've actually wondered what part of the wedding she's actually paying for by this point. Have you ever had someone try to use you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. I used to use people all the time, but ever since that Karen's retreat I went to, half the time I feel like a new person. Entitled Mother owned an online store. A brief backstory. I own a company that specializes in various wedding services, and last year I decided to add gift boxes to the list of services we offer. You know, those ones that brides and grooms sometimes give their bridal parties the morning right before the ceremony? However, I didn't really want to do them myself, and therefore set out to find an affordable supplier that could put the boxes together and sell them through my company. Sound simple? Continue reading. So I came across a website that offered this service. Their products were slightly cheaper than many other suppliers, yet not so cheap that it looked suspicious. The turnaround time for their products on the website said 5 to 10 working days, which seemed fine to me. I wanted to see the quality of their products first, so I placed an order which included one of just about everything they were selling. As far as they knew, I was a groom buying things for my wedding. I got the invoice straight away, paid it, got an email back from the owner stating that my payment had been received and she'll let me know once my order has been dispatched. So far, so good. Now, I'll admit this was something I wanted to do, but it wasn't a massive priority in my life. Therefore, I didn't even notice when she missed the 10 working days cutoff time, nor did I notice when 20 working days had passed. I mean, every now and then I'd remember, tell myself to follow up, and then forget about it again. It was after more than a month had passed that I eventually remembered to follow up with her and was super polite, literally just asking if she perhaps had an update to when the order would be dispatched. It took her about 3 days to respond, asking if I could please forward her the proof of payment again. I did so. She took another day, replied that she vaguely remembers me, but asked that I please send the invoice again as she couldn't remember what I had ordered. I did so. Upon receiving the invoice, she said that the waiting period is 5 to 10 working days. When I pointed out that it was already more than 30, she said it wasn't her fault that she couldn't find my order. At this point, it felt almost pointless even arguing with her, as it was obvious I definitely would not be using her as my new supplier, but I had spent quite a bit of money on this, so I still wanted my product. Another 10 working days passed and no updates. I followed up again. This time she responded, saying that she had unfairly been forced to pay taxes and therefore didn't have money to order from her suppliers. I told her that was tough, but not really my problem. Cut to her switching over from emails to WhatsApp and the rest of her correspondence being mostly voice notes. Cue voice note number 1, where she yells at me and says that she's never dealt with anyone as impatient in her life, and she feels so sorry for my fiance. With weekends included, I had been waiting about 50 days, and the "that's not really my problem" was the only time I had been even slightly rude. I messaged her that was a slight overreaction. She voice noted back, Paraphrased slightly as I no longer have the voice notes, but pretty close. You have no idea what I've been through lately. My child has been in the hospital, and you think you're more important than he is? I can't believe people like you exist. You make me sick. I was slightly taken aback by this. Now, I should mention, I had placed this order so long ago that I had actually forgotten what her business was called, and now I was quite curious to go look it up on Facebook. I asked her for a link to her Facebook page. She replied with another voice note. That is so typical. Well, I have a business, and you have a business, yet you think I didn't Facebook stalk you? So if you write one word about me on Facebook, I will destroy you and your business. My lawyer is going to take you for everything you own. I actually started laughing at that one, sending a voice note back and asking her to please tell me what she thought she could possibly sue me for. She voice noted again. I am a single mother and I'm sick. I've been in the hospital and I don't have to take this from you. So go. Go review me on Facebook. Forget you. Forget you. I said I would if she wanted me to, but I still couldn't remember the name of her business. She replied again. I'm not going to tell you the name of my business so you can slander me. You're sick in the head. I shrugged, went into my email, and quickly looked up the name of her business. I found her Facebook page quite easily. The reviews were actually quite good up until about a month before, where the general theme was basically that she wasn't delivering and screaming and cursing at clients. I thought about adding one, but it really wasn't my style. I messaged her again, telling her that I found her page, but if she'd please just either refund me or complete the order, then there would be no reason for me to write about this. She replied, calmly this time, that she appreciates my patience and she'll have the order ready for me to come collect in a week. I pointed out that I had paid extra for shipping, so I shouldn't have to come collect it, and she replied with that thumbs up emoticon that I detest so very much. So another week goes by, and again, nothing. I left it for another 4 days and then messaged her. She replied saying that the order is complete, but all the couriers are on strike, so she can't send it. This was a complete fabrication, as I work with couriers constantly and definitely would have known if there was a nationwide courier strike. However, I wanted to get this over with, so I replied and told her that I'll just come collect it myself then. She replied asking when. I said I could come the next day. She replied saying that was impossible as her father had passed the night before and they were in mourning. I hate it when people do that because yes, it's obviously a lie, but on that 1% chance that it isn't, I replied I'm sorry for her loss and I'll contact her again on Monday. Monday comes, I contact her again and ask when I can come collect. She says Wednesday. I say cool. Wednesday morning I message her and ask what time, and she replies that today isn't convenient. I reply back that this isn't going to take time. I will drive up to her gate, she can hand me this package and I'll be on my way. She replied, voice note again. No offense, but after the way you have treated me, I don't feel safe being alone when you come, and I need my husband to be here. I laughed again, replying that I thought she said she was a single mother. Cue her phoning me and screaming at me. I actually don't recall what she said, but somewhere in between it was decided that I could come the next day. The next day I message her to ask a time. She says she won't be available, but she'll personally be bringing the order to me the next day. I reply, sure, whatever. The next morning I message her what time I can expect her. She says she has to collect her kids from school at 1 p.m., so she'll come after that. I point out that I very strongly suggest she comes before that because the afternoon traffic on the highway is going to be insane on a Friday. She replies that she doesn't mind the traffic and her customers always come first. At 12:30, she messages me that she's on her way to collect her kids and she'll come straight after. I was truly shocked, thinking that this was finally almost over. Cut forward to 4 p.m. and nothing. I message her to ask her how far she is. She replies that the afternoon traffic was too much and I was being unreasonable, expecting her to come deliver it in traffic like that. I replied, fine, so when are you going to deliver it? She replied that she'll come the next day. I replied that I wouldn't be home, but gave her my then girlfriend's number and told her to simply call her when she's on her way. I came home the next evening, and of course she hadn't come. I messaged her the Monday asking what had happened. She replied that they had guests all weekend and she didn't have the time. Hearing this, I told her that I really did not want her product anymore and that I would really appreciate a refund. Cue another voice note, paraphrased again. Forget you, you grunt. I have gone out of my way for you, and now you want a refund? No, no, no! You will not get a refund. Forget you. My child was in the hospital all weekend, and I don't have time to deal with your garbage above that. Forget you! I hope your business goes bankrupt, you grunt. At this point, I was done dealing with her and said, fine, you win. Keep the money and go well. She replied that she's not a criminal and she's bringing my stuff through right now, because how dare I treat her like she's a criminal, and she always puts her clients first. I replied that I really didn't want it anymore and she could save herself the trip. She replied that she's on her way, and I blocked her. About a month later, I was entering my security complex when the security guard said he had received a delivery for me. I wasn't expecting anything, so had no idea what it was. Imagine my surprise when I saw that she had actually come to deliver the product, even though half the groom items said bride and half the bride items said groom. The next day, I got an email from her asking me to please review her business. I didn't, but her website and Facebook page have since been removed. I hope she's not doing business under a new name, because I feel for anyone that has to deal with her. Entitled neighbor demands we take care of her leaves for free. Ends up with more work. Setup. I'm from upstate New York, where we have lots of beautiful trees, but at this time of the year, those beautiful trees have produced lots of fallen leaves. My family runs a leaf clearing business where we help clear, bag, and collect leaves from the roof to the ground. Today we were clearing a property with 2 of us leaf blowing, while another was doing roof and gutter work. The house next door had double the amount of leaves as the house we were working, especially in the back. 10 minutes in, the entitled neighbor appears, wildly waving her hands. Cast. We've got entitled neighbor. We'll call her Karen for short. We've got family member 1, family member 2, and we've got me. Karen, emphasizing her words. Excuse me? Worker people. Family member 1, put off by her rudeness but being polite. Yes? You're Miss Karen, correct? Is everything okay? Karen, putting on a fake smile. Yes, I am. And no, I need you to move your cars. My son will be home soon, and I need to make sure he has room to pull in. Me, glancing over at a car backing onto her property. Looks like a car just pulled in. Is that him? Karen quickly looks over and drops the smile. Look, I don't want any damage to occur if someone backs up and I need to leave in a bit, so just move the second one. Me. Yes, ma'am. Karen looks smug as she watches me put down my backpack and move my car off the middle driveway space between her and the neighbor that wasn't blocking anyone and put it in an area further down. After completing most of the front yard, we began pushing the nice collection of leaves to the back to be pushed off a drop-off, and I see Karen approach family 2, who was putting away the gear from roof and gutter work and was preparing to join us in collecting the backyard. I was not there for this, but my family member 2 told me the conversation. Karen. Hello. You are all doing such a good job. Before I forget, nice neighbor told me you'd also blow out my back patio area. Since our house lines are so close, make sure you completely clear out the fire pit and chairs as I have company coming tonight. Family member 2. Oh, I wasn't made aware. Give me a moment to check in with nice neighbor and I will flag my team over there. Karen, looking furious. Excuse me? You think I'm a liar? They aren't home, but I will be sure to inform nice neighbor of your disrespect. Good luck getting them back next year. Family member 2. Not being born yesterday, but also wanting to call this lady out. Fake concern. Oh, of course, ma'am. I'm so sorry for upsetting you. We will, of course, clear out your back patio. But... Karen, cutting him off, putting on another smug grin. Make sure the deck gets cleared out too. I'd better not see a single leaf. Karen turns to walk away, and family member 2 follows up loudly as he is taking out his phone. But I will call the neighbor really quick, since they forgot to tell me about your fire pit. I should double check if they want us to clean out the stone wall and swing set area. Karen stops and whips around looking frantic. What? No, you don't need to. Family member 2, having dialed already, smiles as nice neighbor picks up and begins to converse cheerfully, watching Karen's face pale, then redden as she hears him mention her. Once he hangs up, he looks her dead in the eye and says, "Thank you for reminding me. Turns out they did want the stone wall area done, but didn't seem to know about clearing your property at all." Karen, frustrated. Well, you already blew a bunch of leaves onto my yard. You should at least remove them. Family member 2, sarcastically. Sure, we'll grab the 20 leaves we blew over. Family member 2 then bent over and began loudly counting the 20 leaves on her front lawn. Karen stomps back to her house, furious, and my family member dropped the small handful of leaves he had collected and joined us, quickly telling us of her scheme. We were sure to get every nook and cranny of the nice neighbor's yard, leaving not a single leaf. Our revenge. When we got to the hill drop, we would lean/grab on the trees for support to push the leaves as far as possible. 2 of the trees we leaned on still had some leaves on them, barely holding on, and the branches, well, as fortune would have it, they hung over Karen's property, over her patio, with the fire pit. The trees dropped several small masses near her precious fire pit, and I would be lying if I said I didn't give the tree an extra shake when we finished. Enjoy cleaning your yard. Have you picked up any of the leaves outside yet? Or are you waiting till more come down? Please let us know. Just don't forget to do mine while you're out there. Am I the jerk for taking back my nephew's Christmas present and giving it to my son? My sister and I have always had a strained relationship. I usually just let things go and try to keep the peace. We both have sons who are around the same age. My nephew is 13 and my son just turned 11. For my son's birthday, I bought him the new gaming system he has been wanting. He was absolutely thrilled and he plays nonstop. My sister is bad with money. I usually have to lend her money for bills and stuff for my nephew. I know my nephew doesn't always get the best Christmas gifts, so this year I went a little crazy and I purchased the same gaming system for him for Christmas. I already had it ready and wrapped under my tree. Yesterday, my sister's family came to visit. My son asked me if they could go play video games. I said yes and reminded them to be careful. About 30 minutes later, my son comes running to me crying. I asked him what was wrong, and he led me to the front hall. When we got to the stairs, I see the new gaming system smashed on the floor. Someone had thrown it from the upstairs, and it was now smashed to pieces. I asked my son what happened, and he sobbed and pointed at his cousin. I asked my nephew if he did this, and he started to laugh. He said that it was a stupid baby toy, and that he saw people break them online. My sister came in, and I told her what happened. I explained that this was an expensive system and that her son needs to be disciplined for what he did. I told her I wanted her to pay for what her son broke. She laughed and said no. She says I shouldn't have let them play unsupervised, that it was my fault and that I am a bad parent. She said my son will get over it and that it was not important. Seeing my son sitting on the ground next to his broken system, trying to put the pieces back together, tore my heart out. I walked over to the Christmas tree and grabbed the system that was meant for my nephew. I pulled the gift wrap off and I gave it to my son and told him to go upstairs and set it up. My sister asked me why I was making such a big deal when I had another one already. I then laughed and told her that that was her son's Christmas gift, that since it wasn't important and it was just a stupid baby toy, then they obviously won't miss it. I then told them to leave. My nephew realized what happened and began to cry that my son had stole his system. I said no, his was the one that he smashed. My sister was livid and told me that I will never see them again. I just said okay and slammed the door. Other family members have now been calling me nonstop and saying that I'm the jerk and that I ruined my nephew's Christmas. I don't think so though. My nephew is 13. He is not a stupid kid and he knew what he was doing. I don't care that it was over jealousy. He's old enough to know better. My sister was not going to make the situation right, so I just did what I had to do. They all think I should buy a new gaming system for him, but I don't have that kind of money. I'm starting to feel bad about this and I'm wondering, am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. No, but his sister and her brat are. Next. Entitled Mom tries to stop me from swimming in a swim meet. Backstory. I swim competitively in a club. This club is like most other swim clubs in the country. We have meets against other teams and sometimes we have meets within the team. At the time of this story, I am at a meet against a rival swim team about to race. I was getting ready to swim, doing stretches, when the lady timing the lane, entitled Mom, taps on my shoulder. Entitled Mom, can you move a bit? My son is swimming next. Me, sorry ma'am, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to swim after the group in front finishes. What do you mean? I'm sure you made a mistake. Please move to the side now. Entitled Mom shuffled to the side to reveal her son, and he looked pretty young, or maybe just short. He was on the other team and looked kind of confused. Me, how old is he? I'm pretty sure he's supposed to swim in the other pool. I know for a fact that my son is supposed to swim in this pool, in this lane. Now please move. Entitled Mom's son started telling Entitled Mom that he thought I was correct, but Entitled Mom waved him off. Me, ma'am, can you get the stopwatch ready? I'm swimming in like 20 seconds. Entitled Mom, raising her voice. I think that you mean my son is about to swim. Now please move to the side. I want to get my son a good time. The official blew his whistle, and the swimmers in the other lanes got onto the starting blocks. When I began stepping up on the blocks, Entitled Mom grabbed me and pulled me back. Me, annoyed. What are you doing? I'm about to swim. That is it. Entitled Mom pulls me back and pushes her son up to the starting blocks. And before I could try to stop it, the official says, Take your marks. And I yelled towards him. Wait a second. The official put down his microphone and yelled, Quiet down, son. A swim meet is going on. Towards me. Plus 100 self-confidence for Entitled Mom. Another official ran up to us. Official. What is going on here? Me. This lady's trying to stop me from Entitled Mom. My son is trying to swim, but this spoiled brat here, me apparently, is trying to stop him. The official looked at Entitled Mom's kid on the starting blocks, then calmly said, Son, get down from there. You're supposed to swim in the other pool. Entitled Mom. What do you mean? My son is supposed to swim next. What do you mean he's supposed to? The official waved her off and helped her son get off the blocks. He took the stopwatch from Entitled Mom. Official. You can go now, ma'am. I can time this kid. Entitled Mom angrily walks away, her son right behind her, running to get to the other pool. The official let me get up on the blocks, and I finally swam my race. What a day. I made an entitled customer wait for hours after they complain about slow service. I'm a waiter at one of the nicest restaurants in my hometown. I'm pretty reasonable and always end up striking friendly conversations with my tables. I have 1.5 million stories about people who were seemingly very friendly but ended up stiffing me on my tips, but this is an r/malicious compliance, so I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't be a jerk to your server until after you receive your food. It's a beautiful day, and the restaurant is on the water. Every nice day is absolutely packed. My restaurant does not take reservations of any kind ever, so people have to go in person, request a table, leave, then come back later to eat. Normally, locals understand and expect this. There is no problem. But we are a tourist town. When newcomers try to get tables, there's always trouble. This is important in a second. Now, I am swamped. I've had my section full for the entire day and haven't had time to go on a single 5-minute break since the start of my double shift at 10 a.m. It's now around 6 p.m. A couple lands at one of my tables in the corner and they're already upset because they had to wait to get a table after a new girl had tried to take a reservation for them over the phone and they had to be called back and told that they had to come in to reserve a spot. I nod to them, acknowledging that I see them after I notice them glaring daggers at me as if to say, get your butt over here now. I was dealing with a particularly crappy table at the time. Any server reading this will know the type. Every time you come back, they need something else. They ask you for ketchup. You bring ketchup. Then once you're back, they ask for refills on drinks. You run and do that. And then they need salt. And then they want to order more food. Blah, blah, blah. Now, at this point, there are 2 things you need to understand. 1, they had sat around waiting for a table for over an hour before being set. And 2, our restaurant has food runners. For those of you who are not familiar with this, it's a group of high school kids that, for around 6% of all tips the restaurant receives, will take care of running your food to your tables for you. Now, I was also the only person that treated the food runners like human beings instead of pack mules. Because of this, my food runners were very well organized and would happily help me out when I was swamped. A food runner had gone to my table, offered them water, brought them silverware, and told them I would be over shortly. 5 minutes later, I roll up and start my speech. Hello, my name is Gray, and welcome to the restaurant. Sorry for that wait, as you can tell I'm really busy. And the man cuts me off. What's your name? He asks condescendingly. Gray, I reply. Gray, he starts up again. Why is this the first time you're coming to the table? We've been here waiting for over 45 minutes. They had literally gotten there no more than 8 minutes ago and thought I hadn't noticed them walk in. You are by far the worst waiter I have ever seen. You should have greeted us and walked us to our table. Another lie, as I saw the hostess do this like she does for every other person that eats here. Now, I was already having a bad day, and I was on my second part of a double shift that I knew would go well past midnight, so I was having none of it. This guy goes on to insult my posture, my accent, my clothing. I'm wearing a uniform, and a myriad of other things. At this point, I'm staring straight through him, not listening to a single word. Finally, he says, "We want another server now." You should be fired for your incompetence. I smile. He would not have asked for that. He basically just gave me the green light to mess up the rest of his evening. I'm friends with everyone in the restaurant. When I have a request, it can usually be handled almost instantly, but this time was going to be different. I walk to the hostess's table and see one of my best friends, let's call her Emma, crying under the counter. Emma is a 4'6", adorable Hispanic girl who was 20 years old. She was just a tiny little thing, and she needed a step stool to address people at the front desk. She had a cabinet that she could literally sit in and take naps, and she was in there crying. I gave her a big hug and asked her what was wrong. She said a couple had chewed her out for 10 minutes straight about how terrible she was, and guess who it was? My table. I asked her if she wanted some revenge, and she said heck yes. I told her to take as long as she could, but apparently I was not good enough, and they wanted a new table. She smiled. She knew what was going to happen. I told my water buddy, John, that Emma was going to send him a table in an hour or so and went back to work. That couple watched 3 tables sit down, order their food, eat, pay, and leave before they even got to order. They sat and waited the entire time just to try and stick it to me. The look on their faces as I happily and efficiently took care of all of my tables right in front of them was priceless. Since they were not my table anymore, I didn't visit them once. Once they were moved, ate, and left, I asked the waiter that took their table how they were. He said they were very polite and patient with them. I think that will be the last time they treat waitstaff so horribly. Well, you never said not to wear orange. For some important background, I went to a very strict religious school, and though I was also religious, Catholic, I was not the same religion as the headmaster and founders, Baptist. They did not like me from day one and made it clear. I wanted to play soccer, but they only had a men's team. All the girls here play volleyball. Why don't you try that? I didn't want to play volleyball. I had played soccer for 10 years at this point. I wanted to play popular Christian rock songs for music ministry and was told that we weren't allowed to play that devil music. Tons of stuff like that. I was in the office more than once despite being a mild-mannered freshman. Another important note is that at this time, I had a pretty, we'll call it punk style, I guess. I did a lot of shopping at PacSun, Hot Topic, and most of what I owned was black. Normal teen stuff. I also had very, very long brown hair that would often fall in my face. Think Violet from the first half of The Incredibles. This will be important. Things continued to get worse over the next 2 years. Finally, at the beginning of my junior year, I was called into the guidance office. The headmaster, guidance counselor, and my English teacher were there for an intervention. Mrs. English. Lucky Bug, we're very concerned about you. You don't seem to be very social. Are you happy? Are you having dark thoughts? Me. I'm perfectly happy, and I have a ton of friends. What made you think there was something wrong? Headmaster. We're all just a little concerned about how you present yourself. Me. What is that supposed to mean? Mrs. English, interrupting loudly. Well, it's probably because you dress in all black, baggy clothes, and your hair is always in your face. It would be nice if we could see you smile and know you're all right. Me. What's wrong with wearing black? I just feel comfortable in these clothes. Plus, the baggy pants aren't that baggy, and they help me avoid accidentally breaking the pants must not be skin tight rule in the dress code. And I'm proud of my long hair. It's taking me years to get it this long. I'm perfectly happy. I'm just wearing what I like the most. Headmaster. Well, we'd like to see you wearing happier looking outfits. You really should make an effort to fit in among your peers. Mrs. English. And you should try wearing more happy colors. Wearing harsh blacks will only make us wonder how you're doing. It's safe to say I was horribly insulted. So, cue the malicious compliance. I spent the next few days investigating, waiting for the nugget of information that would make this compliance so sweet, juicy if you will. Finally, my English teacher says offhandedly, while insulting yet another student, I just hate the color orange. It's such an unbearably ugly color. There it was. My plan was ready. I filled my closet with orange, bright orange top, striped orange jacket, puffy orange vest. My favorite was an iridescent, fluorescent orange rain jacket. Honestly, I don't like the color orange either, but I did what I had to do. So almost every day for the rest of junior year, I wore an orange shirt and pulled back my long hair to make it even more visible. Then I sat in the front center seat of Mrs. English's class and made her stare at my bright orange shirt. I could see the disdain in her face every time. A few of my friends got in on it occasionally too. After about a month, she made a comment about how it was nice to see me putting some more variety in my wardrobe, but why did I have to pick orange? I just said, well, you didn't want me to wear black anymore, but isn't orange a great color? And I didn't stop wearing orange until the end of the year. Speaking of orange, what's your favorite color to wear? Please let us know. I prefer pink myself. Am I the jerk for not removing butter from the breakfasts I make for my whole family? I, 16 female, live with my parents and my 2 older brothers. A couple of months ago, I decided I needed to gain some weight. I am technically underweight, and honestly, I didn't really like the way I looked or felt. I found a bunch of ways to add some more calories into my diet, and one of those was actually eating breakfast. In the past, I rarely ate breakfast, and I never ate a breakfast that was a whole meal. So I started cooking myself breakfast every day. Not only is it delicious and helps me gain weight, but I also enjoy relaxing in the morning by cooking something. I make a lot of different things, but to give you an idea, this past week I've made waffles, breakfast burritos, egg sandwiches, and oatmeal. When I first started cooking breakfast, my parents and brothers, who work from home at the moment, asked me if I could make some for them too. I said sure, because I was already cooking, so it didn't bother me. Since then, I've been making 5 portions of breakfast every morning, and everyone has been enjoying it. And I've gained 5 pounds. About a week ago though, my parents and my oldest brother went on a sort of a health kick. They decided they wanted to eat healthier and cut down on how much fat and sugar they were eating. That's not really what I need personally, but whatever, I don't care what they eat. They decided to swap out sugar with stevia, buy these healthy yogurts with no sugar, and swap out butter with margarine. They also decided that they wouldn't cook with fats anymore, they would just use Pam. My other brother and I don't follow any of these things. Personally, I think I'm healthy enough, and the amount of sugar and butter I eat isn't going to hurt me. So I still put sugar and butter into breakfast and cook with butter or oil too. Yesterday we were all eating breakfast and my dad asked me what was in the waffles, so I told him flour, butter, sugar, etc. He seemed surprised and asked why I didn't just use the stevia and margarine. I told him because I don't really like them and I'm trying to gain weight, so using low-calorie alternatives doesn't seem like the best idea. Then my dad asked me if I could just switch to Pam when I cooked stuff to reduce the calories a little. I told him absolutely not. Since then, my mom and other brother have tried convincing me. I've told them no several times, and now they're angry that I won't compromise. I told them if they wanted to use their low-calorie stuff, they could cook themselves. They think I'm being inconsiderate of their health and that I'm just being rude. My dad even went so far as to threaten to stop buying sugar and butter if I wouldn't be more considerate of them. I think that if I do compromise, eventually they'll ask me to swap out more and more stuff until I'm barely eating more than before. Am I the jerk? Speaking of breakfast, do you eat anything for breakfast? And if so, what kind of stuff? Please let us know. We just do coffee over here, lots of it, every morning. Entitled Mother tries to take a box of my model trains. This happened literally a few days ago. I have several small and medium-sized model railways. 2 are more or less fully complete now, with one still being worked on and another one on the cards to be built. I'm also moving house, so lots of big boxes full of all my stuff. Luckily, I'm not moving too far away. I can see my new place out my current window. So the engines, coaches, and trucks take up about 2 boxes. 2 of those big, heavy, chunky movie boxes full of trains. I'm stacking them up outside the front door while I find the keys, pushing the boxes through the threshold with my foot. I get them in my flat, lock up, and go back for the few scragglers that wouldn't fit in the bigger boxes. The 2 locos in question cost about 90 to 150 pounds each, one being a custom weathering job I commissioned and the other being sound fitted from the manufacturer and then weathered by me. So all in all, about 200 pounds worth of model locomotives in one clear carrying bag. I get to my new flat, put the bag with the locos down, and balance the bundles of 7-foot-long battens in my other hand up the wall while I find the keys. A kid screams about a bag of trains to his mother, and the kid's mother just takes the bag from literally under my nose. I let the wooden planks drop and smash into the ground and rip the bag out of the woman's hand. The loud bang from the planks is enough to attract the attention of a few people nearby who must have heard it, and Entitled Mom too. Entitled Mom: "Excuse me, those are for my boy." Me: "No, those are mine. You stole them from under my nose and I saw you do it. These are not toys, these are models." Entitled Mom: "No they are not. They are toys. My boy just bought them from the shop. Give them back. Me. Pff, no, they're mine. Would you like to see the order information and invoices for them? I keep all info about every model I ever buy. That way, if something goes wrong with it in any way, I have proof I bought it from whoever and when I bought it. The kid starts crying and screaming, blabbering about his choo-choos. Entitled Mom, I will call the police. You stole them from my kid. How dare you? Me puts the bag down, opens one of the loco boxes very far away from the entitled mom and her kid, unfold the invoice from the box, put the loco back in the box and bag, then hand the woman the invoice. What's that? Me, a piece of paper with my name on it that says I bought and own these models and not you or your kid. Me, I then walk back to the bag, put the papers back in the box and head inside to my flat. Through my front window, I see the woman consoling her brat while on the phone, presumably to the police, because about 15 minutes later, I get a tap on the window. No electric yet, so doorbell doesn't work, and it's a policeman. Officer, this lady says you stole some toys from her kid. Me, no, she stole these models from me. Here's the invoice from when I bought these locos about 3 years ago. I show him both locos and their invoices. He seemed pretty happy and thanked me and walked outside. I was busy moving boxes and stuff, so couldn't see or hear what was going on outside. But I hear a sudden screech of car tires. I look out and entitled mom has driven off the wrong way down a one-way street. Cop car goes after her. So yeah, nearly lost 200 pounds worth of model trains this week. That was fun. I honestly think if the planks didn't crash to the ground, I may have had to run after the woman to get my stuff back. Mop your own floor. I am a general contractor and was one in New York City for almost 10 years. We had these nightmare clients that were the worst of the worst. Every one of my fellow general contractors would say, oh yeah, I had a client like that, until they heard stories from me and realized these guys were one of a kind. The clients begged to move in. We weren't ready, but agreed if they understood that we would still be doing final touch-ups, etc. They swore they understood and were so grateful. Right up until moving day, then they treated us like the help. We would get calls at all hours of non-urgent items like, there's a paint touch-up needed in our guest closet. Can you send someone now? My mother is coming to stay this weekend and can't see that. The story. Long after we were finished in the main house, we were doing periodic work in the guest apartment. I say this just to clear up. We hadn't been in their house for almost a month, nor had any of the work we had done been dusty or dirty. One Saturday around 11 a.m., I get a text. He was notorious for texting after being told not to after hours unless it was an emergency. Entitled guy. Hey man, I know you don't want to hear this right now, but I'm walking around the house barefoot and I just noticed the bottoms of my feet have dust on them and are a little dirty, so you're going to have to come mop the floor. We have guests coming in at 1 p.m. for lunch, so it needs to be before then with enough time to dry. So, like now. Me. Hey mate, just to be clear, you're asking me to send someone to your house to mop your floor? We haven't caused that dust. Your cleaner was there yesterday. So even if we did cause it, at some point she was there between the last time we were there and now. Entitled guy. Well, it's dirty and it's your dirt, so you need to send someone. Me. Listen, it's not our obligation to do that. We won't be coming to do that. This, once again, is not a reasonable request, and I've asked you not to contact me or my staff on weekends as it's family time and we take that seriously. Entitled guy calls me on the phone. Are you serious? My floor is filthy right now and I have guests coming. Me. Mate, we didn't do it. We're not cleaners. We're not available. We're not coming. This is ridiculous. We've sacrificed so much for you guys. They hadn't, but always said this. And I need this one. It was like this 3 times a day most days. Thing, and you always push back. Me. Mate, you're a healthy 41-year-old man. Mop your own floor. But, bye mate. Weirdest thing about these clients is they would yell at you and act like this, and then the next time we saw each other, it wasn't a thing. I learned over time that they just existed like this. They spent their whole lives speaking to people like garbage, so that interaction for them was just a normal request, whereas to me or any other respectful human, this was huge disrespect. These people could fill this sub for a week. Let me know if you want more. Karen harasses me in my own home and makes a fool of herself. I live in a ground floor apartment in the middle of my little town with a small courtyard at the back. There's a lovely set of glass sliding doors that open from the living room into said courtyard, and on the other side of the courtyard fence is the public footpath, with a public car park behind it. It's lunchtime here at the moment, so there's a person walking past every 5 minutes or so. It's also useful to know for context that I'm physically disabled and use a walking stick. My genetic disorder, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, also makes me look significantly younger than I am. So despite being 31 years old, I'm often mistaken for a teenager, especially by Karens, for whom I seem to be a magnet. Anyway, onto the story. So I was sitting on my sofa, watching TV and eating my lunch, when I spotted one of those little black millipedes on the carpet. We get a lot of them at this time of the year, so I used an empty box to scoop it up and chuck it over the fence, so that it hopefully won't come back into the apartment. No big deal, right? There was this Karen walking along the footpath, a fair way down from our fence, and she yelled something like, "I saw what you just did." I didn't think she was barking at me, since I hadn't done anything wrong or unusual, so I went back inside. She then appeared at our back gate, shouting at me for throwing rubbish over the fence and littering. I told her I had thrown a millipede over the fence that I'd found on the carpet. She accused me of lying and said she had seen me throw a box. I opened the fly screen and held up the empty box and said, "You mean this one?" She froze and stammered a bit before saying, "Well, obviously, you threw something else then." Like I was being the idiot here. I said, "Then where is it?" And this lady actually started scouring the flower bed between the footpath and the car park for the imaginary rubbish she was adamant I'd thrown. I guess she found nothing she could reasonably accuse me of having thrown out there, because she came back to the fence and barked, "If I ever catch you littering again, missy, you'll be dealing with the police." So I said, "Sure, I'd love to tell them about you harassing a disabled woman in her own home. We'll see how that goes for you." And she stormed off. What the heck? I get dealing with Karens in the wild, but in my own home? Wish I'd thought to snap a photo of her just in case. Hindsight is 20/20. Am I the jerk for training her kids like dogs when Karen dumps them on me? My cousin Amy, who's 25 female, has two 6-year-old twins and has a nasty habit of dumping them onto relatives to babysit for the entire day without any warning or regard for their time. I, 27 female, have a very strained relationship with her, but because my mom's side of the family demands that we all remain close-knit, so I have no choice to tolerate her. When she initially gave birth to them, she teased me that I'll have to take on babysitting duty from now on. I'm no good with kids, so I remarked to her that if I ever have them, I'll train them, not babysit. She brushed me off. The kids now are very destructive and loud, pulling out stuffing inside furniture, holes inside walls, smashing anything glass and porcelain, screaming louder than a fire alarm, you name it. When it was my first turn to deal with them, I immediately walked them to the store and grabbed the biggest bag of M&Ms I could find and trained them so that every time they followed my orders and behaved, they get one. If they misbehave, I get one. Soon enough, every time the kids were dumped on me, they went with my guidelines and behaved. Whenever I say sit, they sit at the table. When I say stay, they don't leave that spot, etc. 2 days ago, there was a party planned with the whole extended family. I know everything going on. Didn't want to, but mom insisted. And I grabbed the M&Ms since the twins were there. Arrived. Twins were being so destructive, an entire tray of food was spilled, that all the adults had enough and yelled at Amy to control them. She threw out the same excuses of them just being kids, and they'll grow out of it eventually. I shouted the twins' names and shook my M&M bag. They came running over to me, and I popped 6 pieces into my mouth for their misbehavior. I told them to go clean up the mess or no candy all night. They do so. Halfway through the party, every time something similar came up or they just weren't behaving, I was the one able to calm them down. When Amy saw what I was doing, she got angry and started yelling at me about how our kids aren't animals and that I shouldn't be giving them so much candy anyway. I told her that I'm their aunt, not their parent. Why am I the one disciplining them? Isn't that her job? She screamed the same argument at me, and since she's their mother, to stop giving them candy. One of the twins overheard and went crazy, dashed straight into the kitchen and started shattering anything they could get their hands on, shouting over and over that he wants candy. His twin joined him soon after. I repeated that she's their mother and just sat in the living room watching it all unfold. In the end, Amy blamed me for them turning out this way. The other relatives she dumped them on, a majority, disagreed, But when I told a friend about the situation, he told me the training I did can really mess them up mentally later in life. So, am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for training them like this or not? Please let us know. I hope OP starts charging for these services. Dog training isn't cheap. What is and is not a black belt? Several years ago, I worked for the best company to buy electronics from. I am a simple man, and I care very little for how I dress. The only thing I ask is that I am allowed at least a tiny bit of personal expression. Background: I worked in the mobile cellular department for 3 years. I had already had a couple years' experience at a certain shack full of radios and was the local cellular guru. I had trained everybody in my department and was the regular go-to man for a certain squad of geeks when it came to anything that touched a cellular network. Managers came and went. Assistant managers came and went, until Emily. Emily was about my age, young, and came in with a mindset that she was a go-getter and knew all about everything cellular. On several occasions, coworkers came to me instead of her for questions. I had to fix a few of her mistakes, and she'd argue with me on processes that I tweaked because they didn't work otherwise. It was at this point that she, a die-hard rules girl, had decided that she hated me, so she began nitpicking my wardrobe. First, it was my boots. I like work boots. They have ankle support, and she had taken away our ability to sit during the day, so I needed comfy shoes. They were not dress code, as they were not black. Okay, well, that's fine. I switched to black shoes, occasionally forgetting whenever she had a day off. Then she committed a grievous sin. She attacked my belt. Belts were required by dress code, and they were required to be black belts. My belt was a black belt with Deadpool logos all around it because I'm a diehard Marvel fan. Emily: I'm giving you a warning about that belt. Dress code says you need to wear a black belt to work. Me: it is a black belt. It's just got a logo around it. Well, it needs to be all black. Me: nowhere in the dress code does it say that. It technically says it's up to the GM's decision. Besides, what about coworkers 1 through 5 who all wear patterned belts? This is my decision, and I say you need a black belt. So, of course, I go ask every other manager in the store. Not a single one of them cares, especially because we live in an extremely liberal city where personal expression tends to be taken to extremes. I finally asked the GM. He's shocked that he has to answer such a ridiculous and pointless question and indicates that he doesn't care. I helpfully mention this to Emily, to which she responds, Well, I spoke to GM, and while he doesn't care personally, he said he'd leave the decision up to me, unless you want to go to corporate about it. Well, she knows that corporate is a sluggish and useless entity, so she leaves me there, smugly glowing over my perceived defeat. I do believe you've all waited long enough for my malicious compliance. So while corporate is a slow and useless entity, parts of it are actually surprisingly useful. As it just so happened, our store had been selected as the model store for the upcoming Black Friday holiday. Weeks of planning and reorganizing and laying out all got crammed into one stress-filled week as corporate was going to visit. Now, I can't even begin imagining giving a crap who the vice president of whatever giant company I'm working for is. There are so many layers between me and them that there isn't any situation in which I could imagine myself caring about this person who gets paid to sit on their butt while plebs like me do all of the work. Unless you're someone who believes that their entire future lays in that company. Unless you're someone with that weird obsessive ambition to move into management in retail as a life goal. Unless you're someone like Emily. The fateful day comes and everything is going just as scheduled. I'm wearing my Deadpool belt that I've already been written up for 3 times, watching as this supposedly very important person rolls into the building. Immediately, he's swarmed by every worker with an even mildly brown nose. Now, before this, I had been getting death glares from Emily like crazy. She knows I'm up to something and has already promised to write me up again once the vice president has left. Midway through their lap around the store, they're right in front of my section. That's when I take Emily's advice to heart. I walk up to the crowd of managers, elbow my way through to the vice president and ask me, Hey, Mr. VP, do you mind if I ask you a brief question? Now, keep in mind, this man is looking at me as if I'm a rat or other such vermin, and I've attempted to communicate with him. This is not someone who can really remember the last time he's been addressed by a commoner such as myself. VP, go ahead. Me, so lately I've had some disagreements with Emily. I point at her. about the dress code with the belt. Dress code says to wear black belts, but doesn't specify entirely black belts. Being as my belt is primarily black and adds a little personality to my uniform, I believe it to be fine for me to wear. But despite agreement from all other managers here, Emily insists on writing me up for wearing it. What's your opinion on the matter? The VP glares at me and Emily. VP: I don't care. Seems fine to me. Me: thank you. I leave the group. Emily's face is red enough that my colorblind self can see it, and the other managers sigh and forge on with the tour. Yes, I got a talking to by the GM, but at that point, he couldn't afford to lose anyone pre-Black Friday, and the issue got forgotten after the insanity of the holiday. From that point on, I was allowed to wear my belt. Have you ever had someone harass you about a dress code? If so, what were they saying? Please let us know. As long as I can wear my Live, Laugh, Love shirt, I'm fine. My sister-in-law stole my son's birthday for her gender reveal party. My husband and I have 2 kids, both boys, now ages 11 and 14. My husband's younger sister now has 3 kids, aged 7, 5, and 3. The year my youngest son was turning 4, he asked for a birthday party. He was not yet in school, and so he did not know anyone but family, and there were no kids other than his brother that were able to attend. Luckily, his favorite people in the world are Grandpa and G-Ma, Dad's parents. G-Ma is like a big kid. She's super fun and energetic. She acts much like a kid herself, and my boys adore her. I knew they were very busy, so I asked them several months in advance if they could attend his birthday party. The party was to be on his birthday. This is important. Being the wonderful grandparents they are, they agreed and requested that time off from their jobs. We also invited all close-by family, including my sister-in-law, the entitled mother of the story. Months go by, and it's now about a week and a half before my son's big day. I've bought the decorations, planned the menu, and pumped him up. I like to sing a final countdown song as I prepare breakfast in the morning. One afternoon, I receive a call from my sister-in-law who's about to find out the gender of her baby. She's pregnant with baby number 1. She wants to plan a gender reveal party, but she's called her friends and family and discovered that most work and can't attend without several weeks' notice for their jobs. The only day everyone just so happens to have off is my son's birthday. Would I be willing to move my son's birthday party to another day so she can have her party? At this point, it may bear mentioning that she already has 3 baby showers planned and has asked me to make the food out of pocket for one of the showers. Most people being asked to attend her gender reveal party were already attending multiple baby showers for her. I am pretty friendly and passive. This caught me very off guard. I tried to gently tell her that my son was looking forward to this and we've had it planned for months, which is why everyone had it off from work. She feigned sympathy but still urged me to please move my son's birthday party to a time that everyone could later attend and let her have this open date for her party for her first baby, while you've already had 2. Besides, your son loves babies and would want to go to my party too. He could still come to my party and see everyone he loves and then get to do it all over again when everyone can request time off. I didn't have time to gather a response as she steamrolled over me, saying, "Okay, if they want to go, I won't make them come to my son's party, but I can't go to your party. We have plans." And her response, "Thanks." I was angry. She had pulled this kind of thing with other people before. I have tons of stories, but she had always really loved my boys and never tried this with me, or not to this extreme anyway. I didn't know how to react other than to vent to my husband, her brother, who wasn't surprised at all and said not to worry and that their dad would set her straight. Funny enough, I was talking to my husband when I saw him, father-in-law, calling my phone. I answered, and he said that my sister-in-law had told him I had no problem with her hijacking my son's birthday, and I had insisted she have the party and everyone go to that one instead of my son's. He said that if this was true, that he would attend her party, but he would way rather go to the party of my son. He had already gotten presents, and they were excited about celebrating a kid that's already here on his big day. I very happily told him that I was never going to cancel his birthday or make him sit through someone else's party on his big day. I mean, he's 4, and I've been counting down for him every morning. What kind of monster would I be? I said that I had told sister-in-law that people could go to that if they preferred, but that we wouldn't be attending. He said that sounds about right and told her he's going to my son's birthday party since he requested time off for that, and if she wants another party another day to give him notice. She canceled, or never organized, the party and then talked about me behind my back to anyone that would listen for years to follow. Am I the jerk for telling my sister why I didn't donate to her GoFundMe? My sister and brother-in-law are attempting to have a baby via IVF. They cannot afford the cost of the procedure/treatments, so they started a GoFundMe to raise the money. They need $13,000 and as of today have raised not even a quarter of the amount needed. My sister called me up and asked if I saw the link to the GoFundMe and asked when she could expect my donation. I told her that I wasn't going to donate. My brother-in-law does not have a job and refuses to get one because he claims he is too disabled to work. He spends most of his days online, Googling symptoms and making doctor's appointments, and my sister shills makeup for a pyramid scheme. They live with brother-in-law's mom and are getting ready to be kicked out because, according to my sister, she is constantly breathing down our necks. When the reality is that they borrowed money from our mother last month to cover their rent and car payment. They have burned a lot of bridges in our family and with several of their friends because they have taken advantage of so many people financially. I told my sister that they were not financially ready or stable to have a kid, and that people do not want to donate money to someone who is bringing a kid into a situation like this. She has since vilified me to anyone who's willing to listen and is calling me spoiled and entitled. In one of her social media posts, she said that family is supposed to support family no matter what. So I responded to her post and told her exactly why I wasn't supporting her. She has since deleted that post and is now trying to turn the family members who will still talk to her against me. My mom thinks that I should apologize to keep the peace, but agrees that they are both being irresponsible and immature. I refuse to apologize, and it is now causing a huge rift between me, my mom, and my sister. My mom said I should have lied and said I didn't have the money to donate so that this wouldn't happen. Am I the jerk for telling my sister why I wouldn't donate to her GoFundMe? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. No, but her sister and mom surely are. Made the mistake of wearing red. There's a fairly popular home garden store in the UK where the staff wear red. I forgot about this till today. I had to go in and buy a few bits for my new flat, minding my own business and doing the whole wear a mask social distance stuff. Walking down the pet food section and I hear a voice. Lady, excuse me, could you help me please? She touched my arm, so that was pretty clear she was talking to me. I was wearing red and black, so I guess she thought I worked there. I know a fair bit about pet care, so I was happy to help. Me, what can I help you with? Lady, what's the serving suggestion on these dog treats? I can't read the packet. Me, let's have a look. I read the packet, but it doesn't actually state the serving suggestion. Oh, it actually doesn't say. What breed of dog do you have? A boxer, but she's just a puppy. Me, I love boxers. Personally, I'd just give her one treat a day alongside her normal meals. These treats are great for training. They can be broken up into smaller pieces. I use them a lot myself when training. Oh, thank you. Do you also have those toys where you put food in them for the dogs to play with? Me, oh, I know the ones you mean. Yes, they are right here. I had one of those for my rabbit. She destroyed everything, so we had to get her dog toys to take her aggression out of. She loved these. Oh, how lovely. These look great. Thank you very much. Me, no problem. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, I think that's all. Thanks. Have a good day. I left and went to pay for my things, making a swift exit before I could get stopped by anyone else. Not the typical I don't work here lady, but it was nice to have a nice customer instead of the typical rude jerks. Edit. I didn't tell her I don't work there. She was so kind and a little frazzled about the products, so I was more than happy to help. I didn't want to embarrass her or make her feel bad if I said anything. I get mistaken for a shop employee a lot, which is weird because the majority of the people in my town know me as one of the chefs at Gatwick. But when I am mistaken for an employee, I'm always happy to help where I can. Why did she sound like a Karen if she was actually a nice person? Because sometimes Karens can be nice, and it's wonderful when you are. Don't get mushy with me, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for using my mother's own threat against her and calling my brother a tattletale? I will turn 19 on Thanksgiving this year. My mother is extremely controlling. She doesn't think your birthday should be celebrated if it falls on a holiday. So myself and my older sister, 22, female, whose birthday is sometimes on Easter, will sometimes not be acknowledged at all because your birthday isn't a holiday. And she will kick people out if they wished us a happy birthday. It's ridiculous. This isn't even the most controlling thing she does. If you get upset, you're the problem. And how dare you hurt her feelings? So my sister said she'd bring me a cupcake for my birthday that I could have after everyone left. My brother, 13, male, overheard and told my mother, and she kicked up a big fuss about it. She called my sister and they got into an argument, and now my sister isn't coming at all because my mother uninvited her. I miss my sister, so when she invited me to her place instead, I said yes. My brother tattled again, and my mom tried to tell me I couldn't go. My sister has offered me a room in her apartment, and I'm really tempted to move. I told my mother I was going and she couldn't stop me, and if she threatened to kick me out like she likes to do, I had somewhere to go, so let me know if I need to start packing. She just sort of floundered for a minute before turning on the tears. I just walked away. She doesn't want me to move because she needs my extra help with my brother, like driving him places and keeping an eye on him. My brother said I was being a jerk, but I told him if he wasn't always such a tattletale, this wouldn't be a problem. I then shut the door in his face. My sister is thrilled I stood up for myself, but I got a call from my grandmother, who is also controlling, saying I'm being ridiculous and I owe everyone an apology. Am I the jerk here? Update. I want to thank everyone for their response. I really appreciate it. I'm moving in with my sister this weekend. I'm packing a little at a time. I don't want to raise her suspicion or she'll be awful until I leave or try to stop me. I already have my important documents and will leave either Friday night or early Saturday morning. To address a few comments I got about my brother. He thinks it's funny when she yells at me or my sister and consistently tries to get us in trouble because he's her good kid. Entitled customer mad that we are on our lunch break. I work in an industrial setting, and the general public makes up some of our biggest customer base. If you didn't already know, working with the general public is a draining and thankless job. Below is my tale of an entitled jerk who thinks we shouldn't be closed for lunch. Characters. We've got me, an entitled jerk. We shut down for lunch daily from 12 to 12:30 and have for years. There's a large sign outside of our gate notifying customers of our hours, including our 30-minute lunch break. We close up the doors to our facilities, all of the machinery is shut down, and even Stevie Wonder would be able to tell we are closed. I'm walking across the yard to get my lunch out of the fridge when I spy entitled jerk hauling butt down our street, pulling an empty trailer behind his hairy homeowner SUV. We are at a dead-end street, so it's very common for people to use our interest to turn around and leave. Then I hear gravel spinning and an engine revving. Entitled jerk. Hey, excuse me, anyone actually working today or no? Me. We're just closed for lunch right now. Excuse me? And proceeds to look at me like I'm speaking in pig Latin. Me. We're closed for lunch. We will open back up in half an hour. Oh, that's just great. When do you open back up? Listen, jerk, you're holding me up from eating my lunch. Cue Billy Bob Thornton in Bad Santa, where he's trying to enjoy his food court salad and gets harassed by a mom wanting to show Santa to her kid. Me, who is now annoyed and slightly hangry. Half an hour from now. With this, I attempt to continue on my journey. Entitled jerk. Well, that's BS. How was I supposed to know that? You drove past a large sign that states our hours. You also could have called us. With this, I decided I was done with my participation in this conversation. Perhaps if he wasn't too busy trying to have his Dale Earnhardt moment by driving in here like a bat out of heck, he would have seen the sign. What a joke! Y'all don't need a lunch break! And I figured at this point, entitled jerk could see I wasn't going to respond any further as I had my back turned and was walking away. Hey, lady, are you stupid? I'm talking to you. Me. Actually, I'm not stupid, but apparently you are, since you can't seem to understand we are closed for lunch for half an hour. So I kept on walking, not giving a hoot what entitled jerk thinks, or if he's going to call and ask to speak to a manager because I called him stupid, or what lame one-star Google review he will leave for us online. That's all, and thanks for reading. Followed brand identity rules when told not to by sales staff. I spent about 20 years in the sign and advertising industry, primarily in design and production, so I'm very familiar with rules regarding brand identity and logos. I had been at the same company for about 15 years, worked my way up from being an outdoor installer to being the primary structural and visual designer for the company. We were a small company, 35 or so employees. The sales staff was never more than 2 or 3 dedicated salespeople. Usually one for petroleum accounts and the other 1 or 2 handled commercial accounts and private customers and one-off sales. Around 2010 or so, they promoted one of our sales guy to a managerial position, so they had to hire a new salesperson. I will call him Dingus. He was an older guy, initially pleasant enough, but he quickly began to grate on the rest of the shop due to his unwillingness to learn the ins and outs of our products and not getting thorough surveys, which always caused problems when the job sold and went to production. This became enough of a problem that we started following up on his surveys on our own to make sure they were correct. One day, Dingus came to me with a proposal for some signage for an industrial campus for a fairly large agricultural corporation. Nothing gigantic, mostly a bunch of non-illuminated wayfinder signage with logos and colors to match the brand. But there were a lot of them, and they were easy to build, so it would be a pretty profitable job in the end. I put together a package and emailed everything over to Dingus. He sent back an email to me saying that I needed to change the colors on the logos and the iconography to two completely different schemes not included in the brand guidelines. He said that the person he was working with at the company had requested those colors. I replied that they needed to consult with their corporate marketing department to authorize the change per their brand identity. I made it a point to tell him that if we produced these signs with altered brand identity, we were opening our shop to the possibility of reworking every sign at minimum and possibly stepping on some toes legally. He told me to disregard their forms and do it anyway, and that I had better have a revised package ready for him on Monday to send to the customer. This guy wasn't my boss, and his rudeness really upset me and initiated the malicious compliance. I put together the new package using the colors he requested. I made sure to call out the PMS colors on all layouts with notations in the descriptions so there would be no doubt that this was a deliberate change. I then emailed a very nicely worded email to the sales guy and CC'd a copy to the customer's marketing for approval, as is standard for our shop and their brand. I made sure to ask them to contact us with any corrections that needed to be made and provided the appropriate phone numbers for Dingus and myself on the email. Monday rolls around and I get called into the office. Dingus and the owner/CEO began grilling me about going over Dingus' head to the customer and how my email had caused an issue between corporate and the local manager who had requested the changes. I told my boss that I had been specifically told to disregard the customer's brand identity and I had made the changes as requested. I then pointed out the instructions from corporate marketing that said all advertising must be sent to them for approval. As I was the primary designer, I was authorized to do this since any feedback from marketing would come to me for revisions anyway. I pointed out that I was never told not to send the specs for approval and that it was part of my job to make sure that my designs would meet with customer specs. Since the on-site manager said it was okay and I had emails telling me this was the case, I had no reason to think that there would be an issue. I knew darn well that this wasn't the case, but I played dumb. As it turned out, the on-site manager just didn't like the corporate color scheme and wanted to do his own thing, since he was the king of his little fiefdom. Dingus just wanted the sale and was willing to break copyright rules to get it. My email exposed they were trying to end run around corporate just to get the sale done. The owner/CEO called corporate and confirmed I had followed their rules to the letter, and that changes to their brand identity were not allowed without explicit approval from them. I was told I had done nothing wrong, and Dingus got an extensive lecture and barely avoided being fired, but was gone a few months later. We still got the job once I corrected all the colors back. Am I the jerk for reporting my wife's cousin to his employer? My wife's cousin is a sheriff's deputy in a southern U.S. state. He's in his mid-20s, and I've known him for about a decade. My wife and I live in a northern state, so I don't see him very often, usually just on Xmas or Thanksgiving. I've never really had a problem with him, but for as long as I've known him, he has struck me as entitled and naive. Becoming a cop has been his dream since before I knew him, and he's very proud of the fact that he achieved it. Since we live so far away from most of my wife's family, there's a group chat with a lot of family members that people use to keep in touch. Over the last year or so, my wife's cousin has a habit of posting videos and pictures of things related to his job that I disagree with. Some of these include body cam footage of arrests, body cam footage of people in vulnerable situations, and plenty of videos of insensitive jokes from him and the other officers. Now, I'm no expert on police matters, but I'm pretty sure he shouldn't be sharing those things with people. Since it's not my family, I've kept my mouth shut to the group, but have told my wife privately that her cousin could probably get in trouble if he was found out for leaking these things to family members. She said that her cousin is just very proud of being a cop, and this is his way of looking for recognition and pats on the back because he has always needed to be praised. A couple weekends ago, he sent body cam footage of him and another officer mocking a person that they were arresting for DUI. The things they said and the way that they treated that man made me sick to my stomach. It was like, to them, this guy was less than human. They showed such a callous disregard for him as a person that for me, it was the last straw. I told my wife that since it was her family, I was going to give her a chance to say something to her cousin. Otherwise, I was going to contact his supervisor and let them know what he has been doing. She called her cousin to talk with him, but he literally laughed at her on the phone. He said these people are criminals, so why should he give a crap what they think about how they're treated? After the call, my wife came to me and said her cousin is a jerk and that it's okay with her if I contacted his department. So I looked up his department info, created an anonymous email, and sent over the whole collection of pictures and videos that the cousin ever sent out. After a couple back and forth emails from them asking questions about how I obtained those items, they thanked me for the information and I didn't hear back from them. A couple days later, my wife's aunt, cousin's mother, blew up on the group chat looking for whoever contacted the sheriff because her son was now on paid suspension and desk duty. I told them all it was me that did it. Now my wife's entire family hates me and thinks I'm a huge jerk. But my wife and I feel we did the right thing. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for reporting him or not? Please let us know. I would have posted all the videos on social media and watched them go viral. The department's just gonna give him a slap on the wrist and sweep it under the rug. But hey, if you've still got all the videos, then maybe it's not too late. I finally snapped on a Karen. Recently found me a job that I really enjoy. I worked both my old job at the restaurant and my new one for a while till I was able to fully start the new job. It's been a couple of weeks since I quit the restaurant and I went in to pick up my last check. They're doing to-go orders only, like a lot of places are right now. I went up to the cashier station and my friend was the only person working and one cook. So I just started talking to her about what had been going on and my new job and stuff while she got my check from under the counter. The kitchen yelled, "Order up!" That echoed through the whole empty restaurant, so she went to grab the order and I stayed at the front waiting for her to come back. I was standing next to the cashier stand, not behind it. A car pulled up and parked in front of the restaurant in a handicap spot, and I noticed they didn't have any stickers to park there. I recognized the lady from when I used to work there. She's a total Karen jerk that every single person working here hated her. She always had many complaints and almost never tipped. She would come in with a group of 2 to 3 more Karens and run the waitress around for 2 hours and then not tip her. She even made a new girl cry one day. So I started to walk to the back to get my friend, and so Karen wouldn't say anything to me, but she obviously recognized me from when I worked here. Some of this is paraphrased because I was so angry I don't remember exactly word for word. Karen screaming red in the face, "I want a refund. I'm so fed up with you all not knowing how to do your job." Me, "Let me get someone to help." "No, you will give me my money back right this second. I'm never coming back here again. That girl said she checked the order, but it's wrong. I was here a few minutes ago and ordered grilled catfish, and there's no tartar sauce in it. How am I supposed to eat fish with no tartar sauce? And I never got the Dr. Pepper I paid for." She looked like she's about to explode with anger. I was starting to feel angry too. Karen, "And then I drove here twice already. I want my money for the gas I wasted." Me, "Okay, just let me go get someone to help you." I will admit I said it in a snappy way. I do not appreciate anyone talking to me like that. She noticed and immediately started cussing me out, and my friend came out from the back asking what happened. Karen starts yelling at her, and I went to the back. I quickly asked the cook for tartar sauce while I made a Dr. Pepper, and then walked back up to Karen, as she was still demanding a refund and $50 for gas. There's no way she used $50 of gas. She's insulting my friend and saying I was rude to her. I just want to say that what I'm about to do, some of you might think is wrong, but after working years in customer service and having to put up with little jerks like her, I saw this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to finally give them a taste of their own medicine. I mean, what are they going to do? Fire me? I don't work here anymore. Me, "Nobody likes you. You are the biggest jerk I've ever met." She looked at me wide-eyed, frozen in shock. Me, "You really think it's okay to just come here and not tip? And then treat everyone like they are worthless? Why are you like this? Always such a nasty attitude, thinking you're better than everyone. I'm sorry your life is so miserable that you constantly have to put others down. Here's your stuff, and you can shove it." I set the tartar sauce and the drink on the counter. Not going to lie, I really thought about throwing it at her. Then I just walked out with my check before she could say a word to me. Although I think she was stunned silent, no one probably has ever talked to her narcissistic self like that before. I went home and started telling my boyfriend about it, and before I could even get a few sentences out, the owner of the store is calling me. He wanted me to apologize and I said no way. So now I'm forever banned from going back there. My friend said that Karen threw the biggest fit after I left, screaming for the manager and the owner, and she almost called the police. Really happy I didn't throw that drink at her now. I did feel bad for leaving her with that mess, but she said she was thoroughly entertained by the situation, and she wishes she could have cussed her out too. I really wish I said more to Karen, because on my way home I thought all kinds of stuff I could have said. I think this has been building in me for a while, and I finally snapped. Honestly, I do not regret a single word I said to her. Am I the jerk for moving out because my girlfriend moved her mom in? A few months ago, I was near the end of my lease, and instead of renewing it, my girlfriend asked me to move in with her. Our relationship was at that level, and she needed help with rent since her hours were cut and she had been dipping into her savings to get around, so it just made sense. I ended up paying 60% of all shared costs. We were gonna go 50-50, but since her hours were cut and I already made more than her before that happened, so I figured it would allow her to replenish her savings. It was pretty great for a few months, until she, out of the blue, told me her mom was gonna come live with us as she had lost her job and house. I told her I was not comfortable with that and asked if there were alternatives. She said that she could live with her grandmother, her mom's mom, but that her mom felt it was humiliating, so that was a no-go. I still told her I was not okay with this. Apparently, living with your adult daughter and her boyfriend is less humiliating? Now, it's worth noting that her mom is, well, weird. She's very obsessive, entitled, high maintenance, puts her nose where it doesn't belong, and is a very dominant, do it my way type of person. She once had a meltdown because my girlfriend baked a cake for her nephew's birthday, and so did her mom. She did not know about this, but my girlfriend's cake was better, and cue meltdown. I got dozens of stories like this. My protests were ignored, and 4 weeks ago, her mom moved into the guest room. Day one was already a crap show. I was going on a grocery run and noticed my grocery list had a ton of extra things on it. When I asked, her mom said she added it. So I asked her for money, and she said she had none, and my girlfriend acted like I was a jerk for asking. It turned into an argument with my girlfriend where she said it's her name on the lease, so her choice who lives there. Long story short, I noticed in the store all of the stuff she added was brand stuff and cost way more. And when I got to the register, I had to pay $220, where I usually spend like $90 at most for the two of us. I put it on my girlfriend's card because I ain't paying for that. When I got home, I called a buddy, asked him if I could crash at his place for a bit, few weeks at most, while I look for a new apartment. He asked his girlfriend, and they called me back later, giving me the okay, and I moved out the next day. I'm moving into a new place in a week. Obviously, we were barely on speaking terms when I left. Now that we started talking again, she has been adamant I am in the wrong, and the only reason I did what I did was because it was her mom and not someone else. Had it been her dad, I would have been fine with it, and I can't deny that. Her dad is great. Am I the jerk here? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. No, but she and her mom kind of wasted a scammer's afternoon using a fake Facebook account. Back in September, I went to look at a pair of moose antlers on Facebook Marketplace that my dad was interested in. He lives in a small cabin on my property and thought the antlers would look cool over his front door. We get there, and the dude is clearly on something. Jittery, keeps wiping his nose, etc. We met him at his storage rental place, so he had to let us in with his code, and we were stuck in the facility until he let us back out. We got to his rental unit, and he gets the antlers out. They were very clearly fake. He said he had spray painted them brown to make them look like they were still in velvet. It was obvious he had sprayed them to try to make them look real. The weight was off, the color was off. There were several large cracks in them, and you could see they were white inside, not bone-colored. There were also several points broken off, and the material inside was white and powdery. Again, not bone. He kept insisting that this could be fixed with some epoxy. Finally, tapping your fingers on them made a drum noise, so they were hollow inside. At this point, I hadn't said a word at all. I was just along for the ride with my dad. Dad politely tells the guy that we're going to pass. He thinks they are fake. Thanks, but no thanks. This guy goes off the deep end, screaming at us, calling us all sorts of names, insulting us, our mothers, etc. Then he starts screaming at us that we were locked in there with him and weren't leaving until he was ready to go. Dad and I get in the truck, and luckily another customer was coming into their unit, and we were able to get out of the locked gate when they came in. We both thought it was hilarious how off the wall this guy acted and how fake the antlers looked in person. I stew on this for a few weeks and finally come up with a revenge plan. I didn't say a single word to the guy, and he insulted my entire family tree, wife, intelligence, etc. I create a new Facebook account with the dumbest old person name I could come up with. Then I use a bunch of hide the pain Harold photos to populate it with. Then start adding as many friends as I can, posting dumb crap about old black and white movies, my prostate, etc. Spent a few days crap loading this account as much as I could. Then, once the account was 2 weeks old and I could get on Facebook groups, I go to a few of the groups I knew this guy was on and find some of his items he had for sale. Luckily, he had 2 large bookcases for sale. Great, something big and awkward to move around. Next, I do some research and find the most pain-in-the-butt location in my city to get to. I pick a place that has no highway on-ramps, so it takes at least half an hour to get to it off the highway. I message him and I ask if he would deliver since I only have a sedan. And he says yes, for $50 to cover his gas and a helper because this would take 2 people to move it around. We set up a date and time and I tell him I'm going to meet him at a nearby grocery store since my house is hard to find. Finally, the time arrives. He messages me that he is at the grocery store. Now I come up with every annoying old person slow thing I can think of. I'm putting my shoes on. My wife is in the shower and I can't leave in case she slips. Then, we've not gone anywhere in so long that my car battery is dead. Mr. Scammer finally asks for my address and says he will find the place. I get on Google Maps and find the most pain-in-the-butt street to get to, knowing he's driving a full-size van and towing a trailer with the bookshelves. So I find a street in the very center of an old, badly laid-out neighborhood, got on Street View and look for where the house numbers stop, and pick a number a few above that one. I tested in Google Maps, and Google Maps isn't smart enough to know that house number doesn't exist. It just points you at the end of the dead-end street. So I reply this address. Of course, I make sure to mess it up a few times and get him lost in the process. After about 90 minutes, he messages me that he can't find that house number, but he's on my street. Can I please come outside? I reply back with, no thanks. Him. No thanks what? Me. I walked out there and saw them. Not interested in buying. My Facebook account blows up for the next hour with him trying to call me, video chat, sending all kinds of horrible messages about how I'm a liar and a cheater. I never respond back. I check it occasionally, and about every 2 weeks he sends me a nasty message still. Dude had no idea that it was me who messed with him or why it happened. I'm kind of debating about doing it again. Have you ever bought or sold anything on Facebook? If so, how did it go? Please let us know. I sell homemade accessories that I hot glue sequins onto. I've made a small fortune. 1 hour of uninterrupted break. Years ago, I was the manager of a small grocery store. I hated it. Bonuses were removed, hours were long, terms of employment were harsh. I took the job to fill a gap of employment and got stuck there for almost a year until I found something else. All that being said, I put solid effort and time into it to get it right, despite it being the worst job of my life. I eventually put in my 2 weeks. I was the last of a batch of managers still employed that were in my hotel group. Most got fired for not meeting unrealistic expectations, and others just quit because it was so bad. On the last day of my 2 weeks, the district manager was coming by to collect my keys. He was a major part of why the job was so miserable. As DM, he gave us our hours that we could schedule. But since his bonus depended on how well we came in under hours, he shaved off time and made the salaried management work harder. I found out later he was shaving off 1 full-time employee from most stores every week. He would always berate us for not working hard enough even if we were working 80 hours a week. All the while, he was working from home and we could hear his kid in the background on our conference calls. Anyway, last day of work for me. He was supposed to show up in the morning. He didn't. It's getting later and I need to eat. I told the assistant manager that the DM came in while I was at lunch and didn't feel I needed to return for the last hour of my shift to let me know. And then I get his call. At 55 minutes into my break time, he called to let me know that if I didn't return when my break was completed, he would terminate me for job abandonment. So here is where malicious compliance comes in. Company policy stated that even salaried employees were entitled to 60 minutes of uninterrupted break. If there was an interruption, the 60-minute break was to start over. I informed him of this and told him his call was official business and I would be resetting my break and would return in an hour. I spent the next hour shopping for something at the store next to my own and then went over when the hour was up. I walked into the store, and as he started to talk, I told him that according to company policy, I was entitled to a 15-minute break between the end of my lunch and the end of my shift. I promptly turned my back on him and went outside to take my 15-minute break, 15 minutes before the end of my shift. When the break was over, I walked in, gave the key to the assistant manager, and walked out. The DM started to follow me out and started trying to ask me questions about the store. I told him, as a former employee of this company, I felt very harassed by my former boss attempting to follow me to my car, and I would get the police involved if he did not leave me alone immediately. About 2 weeks later, I stopped by the store to see how the employees were and pick up the one thing I had forgotten to take with me. It turned out that the DM had been in our store for the last 2 weeks every day as the acting store manager, since there was no one left as a manager in any of his stores. Turns out, he apparently had no idea how the stores actually worked. He had wanted me to come back from lunch so I could show him how to do my job. I'm glad he showed up so late, because had he been on time, I would have been obliged to show him. The day before my post-employment visit, he had gotten a surprise visit at my old store by his boss. She fired him on the spot. He had a company car he was allowed to clean out, but then had to turn over the keys. So there he was, an hour away from home, jobless, carless, and clueless. And I don't quite feel bad for not feeling bad about that. About a month later, about 2 months after I quit, I got a letter in the mail. Inside was a certification of appreciation thanking me for my year of service and looking forward to the years to come. From a place I had quit a month ago with less than a year of employment. Turns out the DM had me on unpaid leave instead of accepting my 2 weeks because he was going to get fired if he lost another manager. Mother gets mad that our power was out. I work at a fast food restaurant. Last week, there was an accident close to the freeway. A car hit a pole, so the power was out for approximately a mile down the road. Our restaurant was one of the many places without power. My GM made a sign that she taped to the speaker in our drive-thru that explained the power outage. She sent 2 people home since she didn't want to run up labor when we weren't making money. It was only me, the GM, and the new guy. We did as much cleaning as we could without the power until we were left with nothing to do but hang out in the dining room. First of all, the amount of people that went through the drive-thru, read the note, and came back to knock on the door to ask if we were serving food was ridiculous. We had to throw out all of the food we had made literally right before the power went out because we were in the process of switching to lunch. Most people were understanding when we explained that we had nothing to serve them. When the power came back on, we still had to wait for everything to heat up before we could cook anything. I was the only one wearing a headset, so I was explaining to everyone who came through that our power had just come back on and it would take a little longer before anything was ready to serve. Again, most people were understanding. One lady, though, was really angry. Entitled Mom, "What do you mean you can't serve anything?" Me, "Our power has only been back on for 5 minutes. It's going to take about 5 or 10 more minutes before our fryer and broiler heat up all the way. Until then, the only thing we have available is drinks." "But my son and I are hungry." "I'm sorry about that, ma'am. If you want to come back in about 10 minutes, everything should be back to normal." "We only want chicken nuggets. Just give us 2 10 pieces and we'll go." Me, "We don't have any ready. We can't cook them until the fryers are heated up. If you come back in 10 minutes, they'll be fresh out of the fryer." "Where's your manager?" "My manager is in the walk-in, checking on the food to make sure that everything is okay in there. I can get her if you'd like." "Never mind. I'll just go next door, where they know how to treat their customers." Me, "Okay, ma'am. Sorry about that. Have a nice day." I watched her go next door and get turned away there too. I was dying to know if she had raised a fuss over there. I just don't understand what part of "our power was out for over an hour and we need time to get everything ready" some people don't get. I'm an entitled parent. My apartment complex was recently bought by a new management firm. They had a new contractor, not a major company, spray apartments for bugs. I wrote them an email saying I don't want my room or bathroom sprayed. I have allergies to most pesticides that cause severe anaphylaxis. I also posted on my front door and bedroom and bathroom door. I came home from work to find my door unlocked. As I was working at banks today, I did not carry my personal carry weapon due to legal reasons. Entering my unlocked home, I could hear loud music coming from my bedroom. When I walked in, I found a midlife crisis Joe Dirt spraying directly into my 30-gallon fish tank. I freaked out. demanded to speak to his manager, started screaming he has to leave or he will be forced to leave. I told him I'd have his job for spraying the fish tank. I had a Karen explosion. I don't recall everything said, but as he walked out, he sprayed into my kitchen and just said casually, yeah, who cares, jerk?" and left the door open, knocked over a planter, and strolled away like nothing mattered. I stormed my way into the office, shrieking for the manager, district manager, anyone in charge. I was furious. One of the regular office girls was trying to talk to me, and I was having none of it. I needed a manager. I left as I suspected the manager was at lunch and remembered the betas I recently got were in this tank, and I moved them to small quarantine bowls. The autos I added the previous night, I moved to another bowl, and sadly, 2 died. Reddit, r/entitled people, internet, I lost it. Not even a moment from entering from her lunch did I rip open the doors and screamed the first name of the manager. I couldn't keep my voice down, and I told her I won't be paying rent for 1 month for every fish that died from this moron's actions. She tries to say that they'll reduce my rent by the cost of each fish. Not enough. I started getting angrier, and 2 of the maintenance staff come in to play security. I ended up leaving after using choice lines like, "I'll have everyone fired," or "You're going to regret this." I wrote an angry email to the new owners and didn't get a response, but they did come in and take photos of the areas he sprayed. One of the women across from me said he went into her room and locked the door while he was in there. She felt very unsafe and like she needed to wash everything. Update 1. I got a call saying the management firm is looking into the matter. I asked for an email and talked to the woman across from me, and she is filing a complaint as well. Personal note 1. Thank you for all of the positive feedback. It means a lot. I'm not too comfortable talking about my medical stuff, but I did have to get a breathing treatment. 3 fish have died in total. As an added note to everyone who DM'd me, I understand different countries and different opinions. Had I had my weapon on me, I would not have attacked him. It was mentioned as I would have swept the house as I was trained to. I'm not some idiot who bought a weapon and thinks I'm Rambo. If that's what you want to focus on, keep it to yourself. Legality note 1. I have consulted a lawyer via email. No reply yet. I want you to refund me. It's obvious you don't care about me or my situation. My day started with this woman. So I work front desk/admin for a window/blind install company. Most of my work is done on the computer and phone, but occasionally I get walk-ins. First thing this morning, I return a call from a customer who left a voicemail. We'll call her Karen as usual. Karen placed an order with our sales representative last week on the 11th, and I've been trying to get a hold of her ever since to get her on the schedule for an install after her items arrive. It's the holidays, the big C affecting our country and our warehouse in California, so shipping is a bit slower than usual. I tell her that we can do the install on January 4th or 5th, since the items will leave the warehouse on December 28th. I got a voicemail from her this morning, and she said the 4th or the 5th is fine. Now, this is where I think the misunderstanding was. I call her back, and I state again, the 4th or 5th, and here's our exchange. Karen: well, why is it taking so long? Me: I assume it's the material shortage in our warehouse for these items in California. Maybe the spike in cases pushed things out. Karen: that was only a week ago. Honestly, this is false advertising, and you're lying to people. Me: ma'am, we don't set the dates. We just do the order and install. They are all estimated as it is. It could be, well, you need to tell the manufacturer that they are falsely advertising. I want you to do that for me. I go quiet for a second, and I won't lie. I lay down my head on the desk and sigh. Me: okay, I can do that. But the shipping, obviously you don't care. You won't get anything done for me. Just cancel my order. I want a refund. Me: okay, I can do that, ma'am. I just need to speak to our representative first to cancel the order. Well, it's clear you don't care about my situation, and I know you won't get this done. So I need your full name and number. Me: I do care. I will actually be the one refunding you once the order is canceled. I just need to verify the cancellation with our representative and the manufacturer first. She gets kind of quiet after that. I tell her my info and she hangs up. I won't lie, I got a bit short with her after telling me what I don't care about. Almost every single customer is on slow ordering now, and I do my absolute best to keep them updated. Also, I've called her and emailed her a total of 4 times trying to get the info to her, but I guess I don't get anything done. Also, again, our warehouse is in California. There's the sea, the wildfires, a material shortage, Plus, the holidays are coming up, and the warehouse closes the entire week of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Also, if she didn't keep talking over me, I would have loved to tell her it's just an estimated date. 99% of the time, the products show up much earlier. She would probably have had her items by mid-December, and if that was the case, I could have easily rescheduled her to an earlier date. I honestly think she thought I said December 4th or 5th over the phone originally, and instead of saying it was a misunderstanding, she just flew off the handle. To top it off, the representative told her it would take about 6 weeks for the order to move out, so that's not very far off from the date the manufacturer predicted the items will leave the warehouse, the 28th of December. The lady is not taking the holidays into account, but she'll get her karma, I guess. I told our representative everything, and he's going to talk to her. But since she took almost a week to respond to me, she's not getting her deposit back. Update. Coworker tried to smooth things over with her. She was nasty to him too. Won't be getting a refund, but she canceled anyway. $1,200 down the drain for her. So, new blinds for me. I feel bad for my coworker though, but at least he won't get money taken from his sale. Thank you for the reward and the love on this post, guys. I really appreciate it. The lady really set the tone for my morning yesterday, and this means a lot to me. Am I the jerk for wearing earplugs and headphones to sleep and study since my parents had a baby? I am a 21-year-old college student living at home again because my college campus is shut down. I have a 17-year-old brother, a 15-year-old sister, and a 13-year-old brother. So yeah, I was already sick of babies and babysitting and all that comes with that. Then this year, my parents got pregnant and had another baby. She's 3 months old now, and I'd been going a little crazy in the house already because it's noisy being around all my younger siblings. Now with a crying baby too, sleep and school have been difficult. I've started wearing foam earplugs to bed, the kind that construction workers wear to protect their hearing. Then I bought a pair of noise-canceling headphones for myself and started wearing them over the top of the foam earplugs to bed, with a couple pillows piled over my ears, and I've been sleeping a lot better. I've also started wearing the earplugs/headphone combination when I'm in classes or studying. I can hear the teachers through the headphones despite the earplugs, and I am not distracted at all. I've also been wearing them when I'm doing things like reading books or video calling my friends. And my parents and siblings have started to get upset with me, saying that I've been completely closed off from the family. I can't hear anything, like my parents calling my name. They don't like how I can't hear the baby to help out sometimes. My parents like all the siblings to help each other out and help with the baby when we can, and say it's dangerous for me to be blocking out her crying because what if I'm the only one who could have caught something bad happening if only I was aware of my surroundings. They've also been upset with me because I've locked my door when I sleep or study, and a few times they've wanted something from me and couldn't get my attention. Like one time, some of their family friends came over, and they wanted all of the family to come have brunch with this family, which I didn't really feel comfortable with visits anyway, but they were embarrassed that they couldn't wake me. Am I the jerk for wearing earplugs and noise-canceling headphones after my parents had a surprise baby when I'm in college but studying from home? Well, what do you think? Do you agree with OP or their parents? Please let us know. My customer complained that I brought unnecessary stress to their nice night out. Last night, we were swamped. Since everyone was ordering sushi as opposed to kitchen food, the wait for sushi grew to over an hour at its height. We were past the worst of it when I got a family of 3, parents and their college-age daughter. As I brought them water, I warned them, as I warn every table on a night like this, that the wait for sushi was around 45 minutes at this time, and that if they were starving, I recommended cooked appetizers, but if they're in a hurry, I recommend cooked entrees. They placed their order, all sushi, just like every other table, and as I walked to the point of sale to put it in, the father made his way to my boss about 10 feet away and complained about the wait time I had given him. My boss, doing expo at the sushi bar, looked for the guy's ticket to see if he had his own wait estimate to give. I told my boss I was literally putting in their order right now. My boss basically showed the guy the long line of tickets and told him, "Yeah, we're busy. Your food will take a while." The sushi chef just overheard and told me to go to their table and confirm with them that they understand that their sushi could take 45 minutes. When I did, the dad unloaded. He said that they're just trying to have a nice night out and that I'm bringing a lot of unnecessary stress to the table and that I've been rude to us the whole time. When they were waiting for a table, I told them that they had to wait outside because I need the lobby clear for people to come and go. I assume this is what he was talking about, and that I had basically told us to expect bad service, that I need to chill out. That was a sort of unique set of complaints. I had told them to expect bad service? I appreciate a customer's desire to have a nice night out, and to that end, I want to set their expectations before 30 minutes later. They're mad that their order is only just getting started. Now, despite his accusation that I had been rude, I had been speaking politely and professionally. Here, I got a little more frank. I told him that we are very busy, that I have a lot of tables whose needs I need to attend to, and that he can expect my service to stay the way it's been so far. I didn't tell him, if you don't like it, you can leave, but I did say, is that going to be okay? No one said anything. I waited a few beats, but again, I was very busy, holding checkbooks for 3 other tables waiting to pay. So I said, I'll check in with you again in a moment, and left. After processing the payments for my other tables, I saw that the family was still seated, so I decided to bring them their drinks. The happy ending. I suspect that his wife and daughter didn't agree with his complaint or know that he was even levying one, because when I returned, it was please and thank you, and when you have time all around. Their food came out in 36 minutes, and at the risk of sounding like everyone stood up and applauded, they left a $30 tip on a $113 total. My manager made me cry. So to set it up, I'm a server in a very high-end steakhouse. Think at least $100 per person, and that's getting the basics. Checks can easily get into the multi-hundreds to thousands range. Moral of the story, it ain't cheap. It's a normal weeknight when this takes place. The restaurant isn't particularly busy, and I have time to be able to talk with my tables. I'm the kind of person, like I'm sure many of my fellow servers here, that can talk to anyone. I find any kind of common ground, and you go for that topic. Helps build a relationship with a table and ensure a better tip more often than not. The shift had really just started when I get set at a two-top that was a man and his wife, probably around 65 to 70 years old. Throughout the course of the night, I find out that they're not from around here and only flew in town for the doctor. I live in a large city with world-class doctors. They had received good news about his cancer treatment and wanted to celebrate, so they came to eat at my steakhouse. They were so kind and warm. I have my own history with cancer, as most people do. I've lost my aunt and grandfather to it, as well as a couple of friends. That struggle resonates with me. Being able to see the celebratory side of the spectrum when dealing with cancer is rare, and I got to help facilitate it. Which leads us to the meat of this long story. I go over to the manager and ask what we can do for them. I explain their situation to him, and he lights up. Oh, I got this. It's fairly common to give away a side or a dessert, whether for celebrations or for first-time guests. It's not common at all to do what my manager did. He comped the entire check, at least $250 on that check, and he didn't blink an eye. It made me tear up when I saw him do it. Completely unexpected. Never seen an entire bill get comped for anyone here outside of employees. I go back to the table and do my normal, is there anything else that I can prepare for you at this time? So I can typically prompt them to ask for the check. They say no and ask, and I get to tell them it's been taken care of. They kinda sat stunned for a moment, mumbling that, no, you don't have to, and really, it's okay, before just saying thank you. I explained that both myself and the manager have personal experiences with that disease, and we were both happy that we can do something to help the celebration along. The woman asked if she could give me a hug, and the man just pulled out a $100 bill and goes to shake my hand with it as he's holding back teardrops in his eyes. I told him it wasn't necessary, and the purpose of taking care of their meal was not to increase my tip. He insisted, so I hugged the woman, shake the man's hand, and that was that. I got to see them talk amongst themselves with smiles ear to ear for a bit before they left. I got to witness some of the best of humanity in that moment, people taking care of each other in selfless ways. Residents tried to kick out the owner, got their houses demolished. This is a case that a lawyer friend of mine told me about. There was once a builder who wanted to develop the land he owned, so he built a small apartment complex. Nothing too fancy, just 6 large flats. 5 flats were sold for a tidy sum, and the builder made quite a profit. He intended to keep the 6th flat on the top for himself, as it was in a nice neighborhood. For some reason or another, one of the 5 residents didn't really like this arrangement at all, so he decided to do something to get that builder evicted. He spoke to his new neighbors-to-be and got them all on his side. A relative of his was a criminal lawyer. He shall be called Idiot Lawyer. So he conspired to report the top apartment to the civic authorities as having violated municipal codes and whatnot, with the intention of getting that top floor demolished. Naturally, the builder was not happy with this. He was basically blindsided with the petition and the case put up against him. Not only could he not build the top floor, but he had to pay the other residents damages. That's where my friend comes into the picture. Now, the one thing you should know about the city I live in was that it's kind of an open secret that every single building in the city violates some code or the other. It is to the point that the municipal corporation adopts an unofficial don't ask, don't tell policy. As long as you keep your mouth shut and maybe grease a few palms, they look the other way, as long as that building isn't visibly dangerous or liable to fall. The other side strategy was to get the builder to agree to stop construction of the top floor to avoid having to pay a fine and go through a lengthy court battle. They weren't expecting the builder to appeal the municipal corporation's decision. See, while the body adopts a don't ask, don't tell policy unofficially, the moment things become official, they are more than willing to come down like a ton of bricks on violators the moment an appeal got filed. Instead of just the top construction, the entire building got slated for demolition. Naturally, the builder, with the help from lawyer friend, was appropriately apologetic towards the body and offered to do the demolition himself in exchange for a waiver of the fine. The court was more than happy to oblige. After all, it saves them money and resources. As the builder owned those machines, the cost to him was reduced. It did eat into the profit he made, but he still had a lot of money remaining. As for the residents, well, they really should have done their homework. I'm not too sure of the technicalities, but between the contract they signed with the builder when buying the apartments and the law as it was written, lawyer friend ensured that there was no way that they were going to get their money back at all. So they were out of pocket and out of a house. Apparently, according to lawyer friend, idiot lawyer's face when he was told this was priceless. He tried settling out of court, but lawyer friend said he openly laughed in his face in response. I guess you don't bring a criminal lawyer to a land dispute. My Karen wife is kicking out my daughter so she can turn her bedroom into an art studio. Our daughter is turning 18 in October. She's a great kid, always got straight A's, never in any type of trouble, and she's very respectful. My wife recently decided to have a talk with her about adult responsibilities. I had no knowledge of this conversation until my daughter came to me crying because she was scared about living on her own. I was confused at first. Then she told me her mother said she needs to start looking for a job because she'll be expected to get her own place after her birthday. I was appalled because we never discussed throwing her out at 18. When I confronted my wife, she said our daughter wasn't a kid anymore and needed our push to become an adult. I told her I was really baffled that she would exclude me from such a serious decision and conversation. I asked my wife, how does she expect our kid to make it on minimum wage, especially considering the rent is out of control in our area? She then informs me she had planned for us to pay half her rent until she was 20. I asked her why she wanted our kid gone so bad. As the argument intensified, I believe she slipped by saying she needed the space, her bedroom, for her art studio. I couldn't believe it. I told my wife if her hobby was more important than our daughter, she should be the one looking to rent. However, she took that as me saying move out, but that's not how I meant it. I was implying for her to rent more space for her studio and to leave our daughter alone. She didn't believe that's what I actually meant. She then gave me the silent treatment for 3 days. Our daughter, however, was still upset as she processed her mother wanting her to move out. She realized moving into a rental meant she had to leave her 2 cats behind. She's had these cats since she was a kid. That alone devastated her. She told me, I don't want to turn 18. I don't want to celebrate my birthday. I picked the argument back up with my wife at that point. I said, our daughter isn't moving out until she decides on her own terms, because she is more important than you or your hobby. She looked stunned, and maybe in the heat of the moment, I didn't choose my words wisely. I couldn't bear to see our daughter so upset any longer. I don't want her struggling to make ends meet and not being able to follow her dreams. The last thing I want for her is to feel rushed. As far as my wife goes, she's not talking to me at all, and she's been cold towards our daughter. Not the jerk, your wife is. While 18 may very well be the age you become an adult, 18 is not the age where most people are prepared to live on their own. Your wife is absolutely the jerk because she should have had a conversation with you before arbitrarily making an absolutely asinine decision. It may be time to take a good hard look at your marriage. Putting an art studio ahead of your kids' welfare and well-being is ludicrous. Edit. OP, if you have not thought about planning for the unexpected, you should. Please make sure you have a will in place to protect your daughter. Life happens. Additionally, think about some therapy to help deal with any anxiety. Turning 18 should be a happy time for her. Not to mention, you don't stop being a parent when your kid is 18 or 20 or any other age. You should be there for your kid and they'll be there for you. If the daughter is kicked out to make space for an art studio, I doubt she'll feel good coming to her parents for help if she ever needs it. I definitely wouldn't. I was welcome back home when the lockdown started. I'm saving up to be actually independent and will be paying rent after I graduate. I'm currently paying for everything except basic food and shelter, car insurance, clothes, pet care, etc. And I fully expect to be there for my parents as they age too, just like they're here for me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Bruh, it's 2022. I don't think anyone can afford to move out at 18 these days. Am I the jerk for being honest with my son that I'm not proud of him regardless of his career? My wife, Nina, and I became pregnant with our son, Jason, when we were both 20. We will admit it was an unplanned pregnancy, but we loved our son and kept him. We did our best to raise Jason to be kind, respectful, and treat others well, and we thought we succeeded. Jason worked hard to attend an elite university. Jason and his first wife, Sarah, had a daughter, Simone. Unfortunately, Sarah passed in an accident before Simone's 3rd birthday. Jason raised Simone until Simone was 4. At that time, he met his second wife and moved 2 hours away. Simone lives with us now. Jason visits once every 2 months at best. He and his wife would stay for the day, buy Simone a present, then Jason would say it was time to leave. Nina and I suspect he only visits and buys Simone the present because his wife makes him. His wife, Iris, is a lovely lady. She insists that Simone should move in with them or they should move closer to us because she wants to be Simone's stepmom and spend time with her. But Jason shoots the idea down because he says Simone moving in or them moving would hurt his career, and it's best Simone stay with Nina and me. Simone is 11 now, and she adores Jason. She makes drawings and cards for him, constantly bakes treats to send to him. It's devastating for her because her daddy is her hero, and he does not want to spend time with her. Her birthday was in July, and she cried when Jason did not call her to wish her a happy birthday. Iris tried lying to Simone to make her feel better that the phone lines were down and Jason did not forget, but Simone did not believe her. Simone is at summer camp all this week, and Jason invited us to a party to celebrate receiving a promotion. During the party, Jason told me how much more money he makes with this promotion and his job title and asked, "You should be proud of me, old man. With my new job and my elite university." I sighed and told Jason that I honestly have not been proud of him as of late. He has a well-paying job, but he treats his own daughter as if she doesn't matter. Simone loves him so much, and he doesn't even seem to care. Nina came back with the drinks, and Jason told her what I said. Nina told him that she agreed with me, and he does not treat Simone right. Most of the family says that I and Nina were in the wrong to tell Jason I was not proud of him. They said I should know how much that statement hurts at any age because I was never good enough in my own father's eyes. They said that Jason is probably focusing on stabilizing his career and Simone can move in with them after. They also said Jason's own promotional party was not the time or place to call him out, and I could have just congratulated Jason on working hard and saved the drama for another day. I feel what I said needed to be said, but most of the family is disagreeing with Nina and me. Am I the jerk? As many people have asked, Jason does pay child support. He believes because he pays child support that his responsibilities have been met. Jason told us he was attending therapy in the beginning, but we learned later he was being untruthful about it. Simone sees a child psychologist, but she seems to talk to the psychologist more about school and friends rather than Jason. Most of the comments have also suggested that Simone could resemble Sarah and cause too many bad memories for Jason. That could be possible, but Simone also does not resemble Sarah at all. Simone looks like a young version of Nina with lighter skin and slightly thicker hair. The issue seems to be that Jason does not want to be a parent to Simone. You told the well-deserved truth, and if that makes him upset, then he can go sit in syrup. I'm proud of you, not the jerk. He stopped being a real dad when she was 4, now she's 11, so he had 7 years to stabilize his career, and he doesn't even want to go to therapy. I lost someone close to me, and to me, it looks like he chooses to forget that part of his life after his wife passed instead of dealing with it. That's why he's such a bad father. His daughter is a reminder of what could have been, and what he lost, so he cuts her off. He's harming himself and her and sets himself up for a lot of family drama. OP, as his parent, needs to give him a solid kick in the pants, so he starts going to therapy. Not the jerk. When you're raising your grandchild, oh boy, do you get to have all the opinions in the world regarding your kid. Yup. As for all those saying how much those words hurt coming from a parent, just wait until your kid wants no more to do with you because you left her behind when she needed you the most. Also, those words are coming from his parents who are actively parenting his kid. The kid who is actively hurting from his actions. The son's ego took a hit. He still all but abandoned his daughter to further his career. I don't care if he hasn't dealt with his grief or compartmentalized, or if his daughter does remind him of his first wife. That's still his kid. This isn't a situation where he could not provide for her. He's abandoning her for his new life. OP, not the jerk. I would have likely said much harsher things to my kids in this situation. Thanks for being good parents to that baby, OP. I'm sorry that you're in that position, though. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their son? Please let us know. The stories about the absent parents always make my heart break. Stop doing this to me, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for scaring my boyfriend and his brother by going missing when they repeatedly left my friend and I behind on a hike? I had plans with my boyfriend, Jack, his brother, Tyler, and my friend Paula to go hiking last weekend. I had suggested an easier, flatter trail for us to hike since Paula isn't as experienced a hiker as the rest of us. I thought the plan was to just hike together and hang out and talk, but on the day of, we started at a normal pace and the guys just kept going faster. Paula was lagging behind, kind of out of breath, and I stuck with her. It irritated me because a huge rule of wilderness safety is to stay with your group because anything can happen when you're out there in the backcountry. They were stopping to wait every mile or so. We never knew where because they didn't say and nobody had cell service. But as soon as we caught up, they'd start going at top speed again, leaving us playing catch-up non-stop. I told Jack that I'd like them to stick with us, and he complained that we were too slow. The trail was too easy. They needed their workout. After the third time they ran off, Paula and I got to this viewpoint before the main peak. So we sat down to take our first breather in hours and vent. She joked that we should stop chasing and let them wonder. I suggested we just hang out at the viewpoint until the guys noticed or found us on the way back down. She pulled out something she had been planning on sharing at the top of the mountain, and we hung out and enjoyed it and ate our lunch. It was an hour and a half before the guys came back. We heard them before we saw them. They were sprinting down the trail, yelling our names. I called out, "Over here!" The guys came running to the viewpoint, and Paula was giggling at my attempt to yell. I got the giggles from her too. The guys confused our giggling for crying since we were both just kinda wheezing with laughter and were asking what happened. I was like, "We're okay. We've just been enjoying ourselves." Tyler got really mad at us, saying they had stopped off a half mile from the summit to wait for us before making the final push. And after we didn't show up for an hour, they decided to turn back to look for us instead of the summit. And he was furious that we just stopped to do what we had done without telling them. I was like, "I thought we split up. Like, y'all were off doing your own thing all day." And my boyfriend raised his voice at me, telling me that you don't split up a group without communication. At that, Paula and I got the giggles again. Like, no duh. It was just funny how he was saying the same thing I'd been saying all day. For the rest of the hike, the guys were angry with us because we ruined their summit, making them turn back just because we didn't even try to keep up. Am I the jerk for going missing on a hike? Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.